Xianxia's heart sank when he heard this. He pondered deeply for a moment before he took out that bare tooth. He was just about to use it to ask for a favor, but he was shocked to notice that they shot hostile gazes at him when they saw the tooth. It was even to the extent that some of them revealed a cold gaze that carried killing intent. Xianxia glanced at the tooth, and then he connected it to the woman's reaction just now. No matter how stupid one was, it was obvious that someone was off. That old geezer definitely tricked me. Xianxia laughed bitterly. Even though he didn't know why those saints acted like that, he knew very well that the tooth definitely didn't represent a debt like Xianxia had said. Because if the Bear Clan did owe Xianxia a favor, then they would definitely not act like that. The yellow-robed man suddenly asked, "Xianxia didn't tell you how he got that tooth?" Xianxia nodded. He said that the previous king of the Bear Clan owed him a favor and gave it to him so that he could seek help from the Bear Clan when he needed it. A favor? An old man with a horrifying scar on his face suddenly spoke coldly. "Xianxia is getting more and more thick-skinned. All humans are like that." Another old man by the previous old man's side spoke coldly and even intentionally shot a glance at Xianxia. Xianxia was at a loss for words. That tooth can actually be considered as a humiliation of our Bear Clan. Meanwhile, the yellow-robed man said, "My father met Xianxia when he left to explore the world all those years ago, and they fought because of some reason." When he spoke up to this point, he glanced at the tooth in Xianxia's grasp and said, "My father lost, and Xianxia took that tooth from him. At that time, Xianxia could have killed my father, but he didn't. I think that is the favor he's talking about." The corners of Xianxia's mouth twitched when he heard this. Now he understood why they were so hostile at the sight of the tooth. At this moment, he really wanted to rush back to the city and beat Xianxia up for tricking him like this. Meanwhile, the yellow-robed man continued, "Of course, there's far more to their relationship. Let me put it like this. If it was anything minor, then my Bear Clan would lend you a hand. However, to be honest, my Bear Clan will absolutely not interfere in the predicament that Ocean of Clouds Academy is facing right now. So, you may leave." Xianxia pondered deeply for a long time before he said, "While it's quite rude, I'd still like to ask why." The yellow-robed man gazed at Xianxia for a long time and said, "I'll say a little more out of consideration for what you told Bait-Ian earlier. Xianxia, your natural talent is extremely formidable, and it isn't bad even in the Central Divine Prefecture. But if you are to continue staying at Ocean of Cloud City and participating in the matters of the Academy, then you'll die." Xianxia asked, "The one who made the demon beasts attack the Academy is from the Central Divine Prefecture, right?" "Yes," the yellow-robed man said. "I can tell you frankly that they'd contacted my Bear Clan, and they wanted my Bear Clan to help as well. However, I didn't agree. They didn't force me to help, but they asked that my Bear Clan doesn't interfere in the matters of the Academy. To be honest, Ocean of Clouds Academy will vanish from Pine Prefecture this time." Xianxia nodded and said, "I understand now." As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia turned around and walked towards the exit. He suddenly stopped when he arrived before the door, and then he turned around to look at the yellow-robed man. "I have an opinion, and I wonder if Senior would want to listen to it." The yellow-robed man gazed at Xianxia for a long time and said, "Go on. I'm quite curious as well." Xianxia said, "Senior, do you think that Ocean of Clouds Academy is their only target?" The yellow-robed man's eyes narrowed slightly and said, "What are you trying to say?" Xianxia answered, "I think that the person who's pulling the strings will definitely not stop at just destroying Ocean of Clouds Academy. I don't have any proof, and it's just a feeling of mine. What if I'm right? Then once Ocean of Clouds Academy is gone, it'll be the Ancient Sword School and Tao Order's turns. Once even they are crushed, then who would be next? Of course, your Bear Clan would definitely be safe if you're willing to bow before the Welkin Wolf Clan." As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia didn't stay a moment longer and left the hall. There was a long moment of silence in the hall once Xianxia left, and then an old man finally spoke. "What he said does make sense. How could I not be aware of that?" The yellow-robed man spoke solemnly. "It isn't just the Welkin Wolf Clan, Python Clan, and Steep Ape Clan. Even Sky Divine Hall have joined the conflict. There would definitely be no need for such forces if the goal was just to destroy Ocean of Clouds Academy. That existence is definitely planning to take control of the entire South. No, it should be the entire prefecture. The old man with a scar on his face spoke in a low voice. Just as that kid said, once the ancient sword school, Tao Order, and Ocean of Clouds Academy are dealt with, they'll probably act against our bear clan next. One of the other saints said, then should we interfere now? But what if the academy is their only target? Another black-robed old man spoke solemnly. If it's like that, then our interference would be equivalent to going against the Welkin Wolf clan, the Python clan, the Steel Ape clan, and Sky Divine Hall. Moreover, we would even offend that existence from the Central Divine Prefecture. Our bear clan will be in danger if that happens. The yellow-robed man nodded and said, our task at hand isn't to fall into the vortex between Ocean of Clouds Academy and Welkin Wolf Mountain Range. Our task at hand is to preserve our strength to deal with anything that comes our way. We'll wait and watch the situation unfold. If they really hold ill intent towards our bear clan, then our bear clan isn't weak at all. The old man with a scar on his face grunted coldly. The other saints nodded. After he left the hall, Xianxia took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. There was a trace of bewilderment in his eyes. Actually, he hadn't held much hope when he came here. After all, there could be said to be no relationship between the Academy and the Bear Clan, so how could they possibly allow themselves to be sucked into such a vortex for the sake of the Academy? After all, it was a war between numerous platinum rank powers, and even saints would perish in such battles. What should the Academy do now that the Bear Clan has refused to help? Would I have no choice but to take you Wushuang and the others away from the Academy with me, and then go into hiding? If I do that, then what about a Nanjing and Mu Hanshan? Xianxia's gaze gradually turned icy cold when he thought up to this point. Actually, he had no choice, because a Nanjing and Mu Hanshan were in Sky Divine Hall, and Sky Divine Hall wouldn't spare you Wushuang as well. There was irreconcilable enmity between him and Sky Divine Hall. Instead of relying on others, I should just rely on myself. Xianxia took a deep breath while a cold glow flickered in his eyes. Big brother, are you going to leave? Meanwhile, Xianxia and his older sister suddenly walked over to Xianxia. Xianxia nodded. I am. Can you take me with you? Xianxia suddenly said, don't worry, I will definitely not be a burden to you. Xianxia replied, you'll definitely die if you go with me. You don't have to head out and gain tempering in order to become strong. So long as you have the heart, then you can gain strength anywhere. Alright, I'm in a hurry. Farewell. Xianxia's figure transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the horizon. Xianxia suddenly asked, Big sister, you keep speaking about how strong Lu Qianxiao is, but who do you think is stronger between Big Brother and Lu Qianxiao? The woman didn't hesitate at all. Lu Qianxiao. Why? Xianxia was puzzled. You should have realized that Big Brother hadn't used his full strength at all. He definitely possesses some shocking trump cards. She pondered deeply for a long time before she said, Lu Qianxiao has gained some fortuitous encounters and obtained an ancient inheritance. In short, he can be considered to be a formidable figure even in the Central Divine Prefecture. Xianxia stated, but I think Big Brother will definitely not lose to that fellow, Lu Qianxiao. Why? She glanced at him and said, you've only known him for a few hours, but not only do you call him Big Brother, you even admire him so much. I'm really quite curious. Xianxia fell silent for a long time, and then he said, I don't know. I just feel that he's very dangerous, extremely dangerous. He's extremely dangerous indeed. Suddenly, the yellow-robed man appeared by their side. Father! Both of them bowed respectfully to the man. The yellow-robed man said, how could someone who comprehended quasi-void rank slaughter intent not be dangerous? But if it's possible, then you can make friends with him. Badian. Why? The woman was puzzled. He's a ruthless person that acts according to his own whims. Moreover, he always goes to extremes and without any consideration for the consequences of his actions. Badian will definitely become another madman if he goes with that fellow. Do you know how the strong come to be strong? The yellow-robed man suddenly gazed at the woman, and he continued before she could answer him. The strong rise by standing on the bones of their enemies. The woman was speechless. After he left Earthen Mountain Range, Yang Yi didn't choose to return to Ocean of Clouds Academy, and he rushed to the Ancient Sword School instead. The Bear Clan's refusal had allowed Yang Yi to realize that he should only rely on himself for everything. He was heading back with a single objective, and it was to get a few swords. While the Herculean sword wasn't bad, it wasn't at the divine rank, and it couldn't be utilized to execute death by a thought because it was too huge. As for intense swords, they weren't able to truly bring forth the might of death by a thought, because they weren't true swords in the end. According to rumor, the Ancient Sword School had a sword which even Sky Divine Hall feared. Yes, that sword was his target. Since he couldn't get the Bear Clan to help, he had to deal with those saints on his own, and how could he do that without a peerless sword? Slaughtering saints. That was Yang Ye's final objective right now. Before he tried to slaughter saints, he had to arm himself to the teeth. But the treasures possessed by the Academy weren't really useful to him, and only the Ancient Sword School possessed treasures that were suitable for him. So, he decided to take a risk and return to the Ancient Sword School. Suddenly, Yang Ye's expression changed, and he forcefully stopped himself in midair. A black-robed man had appeared 30 m ahead, and the black-robed man was completely covered within the robe to the point his appearance couldn't be seen clearly. A saint. Yang Ye's heart shook. The black-robed man suddenly spoke. "You're that fellow, Yang Yi, who repeatedly spoiled my plans?" Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly, and then an intense sword appeared in his grasp. After that, he transformed into a ray of light which vanished on the spot. Death by a thought. He who strikes first prevails. He who strikes late fails. However, that attack which could kill a saint was clamped between two fingers. Did you think I'm one of those trash saints from Pine Prefecture? As soon as the black-robed saint spoke, an explosion resounded as the intense sword in Yang Ye's grasp shattered into pieces, and then his hand clamped down on Yang Ye's throat. Bang! Suddenly, void-rank sword intent exploded forth from within Yang Yi, and instantly blasted the black-robed man away. After he used his void-rank sword intent to blast the black-robed man away, Yang Yi flipped his palm and condensed an intense sword in his grasp. Next, he transformed into a ray of light that stabbed against the black-robed man's chest. However, his sword wasn't able to stab through because a black vortex had started to revolve before the black-robed man's chest, and it obstructed Yang Ye's sword. Void-rank sword intent. How rare! After he spoke those words, the black vortex of energy revolved and blasted Yang Yi flying. However, Yang Yi suddenly vanished on the spot, and he was behind the black-robed man when he appeared once more. A cold ray of light flashed as a dagger stabbed towards the black-robed man's nape. At the exact same instant that Yang Yi had appeared behind the black-robed man, the black-robed man had started to turn around, but an unexpected turn of events occurred. A black shadow suddenly appeared behind the black-robed man, and then another dagger stabbed towards his nape. Meanwhile, Yang Ye's dagger was moving towards the black-robed man's throat. The black shadow was Yu Wuing, of course. The black-robed man's figure stiffened slightly. Obviously, he hadn't expected Yang Yi to have help, and it was actually such a mysterious attack. He was about to retaliate when two invisible waves of force suddenly pressed down upon him, causing him to be slowed down momentarily. It was exactly that instant which allowed two daggers to collide against his throat and nape. However, Yang Ye's expression changed drastically because the black-robed man before him was actually just an afterimage. "Shit!" shouted Yang Yi in his heart when he realized it. At the same time, he suddenly sensed a huge force coming from behind him. Fortunately, he immediately activated the dimensional cube at the critical moment, so it helped him obstruct most of the force. Even then, he was still blasted around 3 kilometers away and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Yang Yi wiped off the blood on the corners of his mouth, and he gazed at the dimensional cube which had enveloped him. His pupils constricted slightly at the sight of it because countless cracks had actually appeared on it right now. Void-rank sword intent, quasi-void rank slaughter intent, the laws of speed, and the laws of darkness. The black-robed man said, "No wonder you were able to spoil our plans so many times. Needless to say, you've surprised me quite a bit. However, that's all there is to it. It's time to put an end to it." As soon as he finished speaking, countless strands of black energy suddenly erupted from within him, and they instantly blotted out the sky and enveloped everything within an area of almost 5,000 kilometers. A moment of silence ensued. Bang! A huge explosion suddenly resounded from within the black energy, and then they started to explode violently. In next to no time, all the black energy had exploded into pieces, and the world trembled before the explosions. A long time passed before all the black energy dispersed, but only a single person was left here, and it was Xianxia. The black-robed man was gone. Xianxia raised his head and looked up into the sky. There was a black dot over 5,000 kilometers away, and there was a wisp of ridicule on the corners of Xianxia's mouth as he said, "I've never seen someone so foolish." He knew I'd comprehended the laws of darkness, yet he still utilized darkness to attack me. That attack earlier was extremely formidable, and it was a low-grade divine rank technique at least. Would a low-grade divine rank technique executed by a saint be weak? Unfortunately, he'd executed a technique which was formed from dark attribute energy. So, Xianxia, who'd comprehended the laws of darkness, wasn't just immune to such energy, he could even control all of it. He's directly taken control of the dark attribute energy just now, and he'd made them explode. That hadn't just heavily injured the black-robed saint, it even caused the black-robed saint to suffer backlash. Xianxia had intended to seize the opportunity to follow up with another attack, but the black-robed saint had fled immediately. However, Xianxia didn't look down on the black-robed saint at all. If that fellow hadn't utilized a technique which was formed from dark attribute energy just now, then even if Xianxia had been able to resist it, the dimensional cube would have been destroyed. After all, the black-robed saint's previous attack had been able to damage the dimension cube, and that was sufficient to prove how terrifying his strength was. Xianxia had a solemn expression on his face as well, because the arrival of the black-robed saint proved that he was now in the sights of the one who was pulling the strings in Welkin Wolf Mountain Range's attack on Ocean of Clouds Academy, and they'd even acted against him. So, he had to be even more careful and cautious. Xianxia stayed on the spot for a while, and then he started rushing off in the direction of the sword school. This time, he didn't fly in the sky and traveled on the ground. Even if he could conceal his aura with the sword domain, he was a huge moving target while he traveled in midair, and it was extremely easy for him to be discovered. Conversely, there were all sorts of things to conceal himself on the ground, so even saints wouldn't be able to detect him. For the sake of saving time, Xianxia utilized the laws of speed all along the way. That naturally exhausted a huge amount of profound energy, but he had Snowy with him, so he didn't have to worry about that at all. Profound energy surged madly and incessantly into him all along the way, and it allowed his profound energy to never show signs of drying up. Just like that, a journey which would have required a few days of travel had been completed in less than a day. Xianxia didn't enter the ancient sword peak right away once he arrived outside it, and he hid himself instead. Because the sword school had activated its grand formation, and countless swords were revolving swiftly in the sky around it. At this moment, the entire mountain was enveloped by the glow of swords. Moreover, Xianxia sensed at least 6 formidable and obscure auras in the sky above Ancient Sword Peak. Obviously, they were the saints of the Python clan which had come here to stop the saints of the Ancient Sword School from leaving. Xianxia pondered deeply for a long time as he gazed at the mountain which was enveloped in the glow of swords, and then his figure flashed and transformed into a ray of light that shot towards it. Xianxia had expected to be attacked by the saints of the Python clan, but he wasn't. He'd only just arrived before the barrier of light when Taoist Gu appeared in front of him. Xianxia was about to speak when Taoist Gu waved his right hand instead, and then a ray of light enveloped Xianxia before both of them vanished on the spot. The Sword Hall. Jian Wuchen was seated at the seat of the host, and 6 other old men were by his side. Taoist Gu was amongst them. 7 saints. Jian Wuchen gazed at Xianxia and spoke abruptly. Was Wanner's Dantian really destroyed? Xianxia nodded. Jian Wuchen's eyes narrowed slightly, while a cold glow flickered within them. If I'm not wrong, then Zhu Yuan from the Dao Order should have been in the city. In other words, he just stood by idly, right? Yang Yi nodded again. It was because of me. Jian Wuchen shook his head. He would do the same even if it wasn't for you. The enmity between our sword school and the Dao Order is too ancient and too deep. It's practically impossible to reconcile. We've only joined forces this time because of Sky Divine Hall. No matter how we fight in the south, we won't fight to the death. But since the Sky Divine Hall has come, then it definitely intends to encroach on our interests. So, we chose to join forces for now. The situation is very serious. Yang Yi spoke solemnly. Ocean of Cloud City is in imminent danger. Jian Wuchen nodded. I understand, but our sword school is powerless to help right now. Yang Yi replied, Senior, you should be aware that once Ocean of Cloud City is destroyed, then we'll be the next on the list. At that time, we wouldn't be able to stop them, right? Don't worry. Meanwhile, a green-robed old man by Jian Wuchen's side said, They would dare to destroy Ocean of Clouds Academy, but they wouldn't dare to destroy our sword school. Yang Yi was puzzled. Why? Because our founding ancestor is still alive. Daoist Gu continued. While the founding ancestor can't descend to this world, no power throughout the prefecture would dare to destroy our sword school while she's still alive. Of course, the founding ancestor would have to pay a price to descend to this world. Yang Yi fell silent for quite some time before he glanced at them. Forgive me for being honest, but do all of you really intend to entrust the survival of our sword school on the founding ancestor? What if they have a way to deal with her? What would we do then? Their expressions changed slightly upon hearing him, and they felt that it did make sense when they thought about it carefully. Quite a long moment of silence ensued before Jian Wuchen spoke solemnly. I understand what you're trying to say, but to be honest, our sword school is powerless to do anything right now. All of us are being prevented from leaving, and practically all the elites of our sword school have headed to Ocean of Cloud City. We don't have any more experts to provide. Yang Yi pointed at himself and said, You have me. All of them were stunned by this. Yang Yi said, To be honest, I want to give it a try. Why? Jian Wuchen was puzzled. Don't tell me that you have strong attachments to Ocean of Clouds Academy. Yang Yi naturally wouldn't tell them that he wanted to act against Sky Divine Hall. Yang Yi replied, It hasn't come to a point where we should despair yet. So, I think that we should be able to try and fight. If we're able to save Ocean of Clouds Academy, then wouldn't it be a really good thing for us? So long as Ocean of Clouds Academy remains, we won't have to enter into direct conflict with the Welkin Wolf Clan, Python Clan, Steel Ape Clan, and Sky Divine Hall. That's why we've chosen to support the Academy. Jian Wuchen gazed at Yang Yi and said, So, what you said does make a lot of sense. The survival of Ocean of Clouds Academy is a very good thing for us indeed. However, can you turn the situation around? I want to give it a try. Yang Yi spoke solemnly. But I need the Sect's help. The green-robed old man by Jian Wuchen's side said, Helping you isn't a big deal. But I refuse to believe that you can turn the situation around. Yang Yi took a step forward, and then Void Rank Sword Intent surged out and instantly suffused the hall. Void Rank Sword Intent. The expression on the face of every single saint here changed drastically upon witnessing this scene, and disbelief filled their eyes. Yang Yi said, Seniors, you should be able to trust me now, right? Jian Wuchen stared at Yang Yi and spoke with a slightly trembling voice. When did you comprehend it? Not too long ago. Yang Yi said, Seniors, Ocean of Cloud City doesn't have much time left. I have some other trump cards besides Void Rank Sword Intent, and that's why I dared to speak such words. However, it still isn't quite sufficient. So, I rushed back here to seek help from the sect. Jian Wuchen asked, You have other trump cards? Yang Yi nodded. Of course. They exchanged glances, and some time passed before Jian Wuchen asked solemnly, What sort of help do you need? I need equipment. Yang Yi looked Jian Wuchen in the eyes. I need the best equipment that our sword school has. The corners of their mouths twitched when they heard him. A long moment of silence ensued before an old man suddenly said, Yang Yi, you're the future hope of our sword school. So it isn't a problem to give you some equipment. However, you want the best, and that's... I'm going to be facing saints this time. Yang Yi looked the old man in the eyes. If I don't have good equipment, then all of you might have to bury me one day. But the old man was slightly hesitant. Because not to mention him, even the others would be quite reluctant to give away the best treasures that the sect possessed. Yang Yi suddenly said, Why don't we do this? Just treat it as lending them to me, and I'll return them once I've finished using them. All right? Lending them to you? They were quite stunned, and then one of the old men said, It wouldn't be a problem if we're just lending them to you. After all, you're one of us as well. Moreover, you're the future of our sword school. Meanwhile, the green-robed old man glanced at Yang Yi and spoke doubtfully. But you won't refuse to return them, right? Yang Yi spoke in a displeased tone when he heard this. Senior, what are you saying? Am I someone like that? Am I? Senior, to be honest, you can insult me, but you shouldn't try to insult my character. Yang Ye's face and neck were red as he glared angrily at the old man, and he seemed like he was about to charge forward and challenge the old man to battle. The face of that old man who doubted Yang Yi couldn't help but twitch. Why are you getting so agitated, kid? I didn't say that you were such a person. Yang Yi spoke firmly in an indisputable tone. I really am not like that. All right. We know you aren't. Meanwhile, Jian Wuchen said, Don't blame Elder Hu for that. He's in charge of the sword school's treasury, so those treasures are even more important than his life to him. Actually, one had to have rendered great merit and contributions to the sword school to obtain any one of those treasures. But the current situation is different, so we can lend them to you for now. Yang Yi hurriedly said, I'll definitely give up my life for the sect. All of them nodded with satisfaction when they saw Yang Ye's attitude towards the matter. Even Elder Hu, who doubted Yang Yi earlier, nodded slightly. Presently, Lu Wanner's Dantian had been destroyed, so Yang Yi was the future hope of the ancient sword school. So, when they saw Yang Yi act so loyally towards the sword school, their impression of Yang Yi had risen greatly. Only Taoist Gu puckered his lips. He knew Yang Yi much better than the others, and he knew that while Yang Yi really did keep his word on most occasions, there were many occasions when Yang Yi was an absolutely shameless fellow. Of course, he would absolutely not bring it to the attention of the others. He was Yang Ye's master. If he didn't protect Yang Yi, then who would? It didn't take long for Yang Yi to arrive at a pavilion called the Sword Treasure Pavilion, while under the lead of Elder Hu and Taoist Gu. The pavilion had 4 levels, and they went directly to the 4th. There were 5 pillars of light respectively at the center and 4 corners of the level, and there was something moving within these pillars of light. Yang Yi was visibly moved because everything on this floor was at the divine rank at least. Elder Hu hesitated for a moment before he said, Kid, all of these treasures have been accumulated over the years by our sect. Be careful and don't spoil them. The corners of Yang Ye's eyes twitched. This old geezer really isn't willing to let them leave his sight. Brother Hu, stop being so hesitant. Quickly take them out. Ocean of Clouds Academy doesn't have much time left. Taoist Gu was slightly displeased. Elder Hu nodded slightly, and he stopped hesitating. He waved his right hand, and a pillar of light in the distance vanished before a black armor appeared in front of them. The armor was quite special because it was actually formed from fine swords. The swords were extremely tiny like needles, and the armor was weaved from at least 10,000 sword needles. It's called the sword armor, and it's refined from high-grade Saint rank dark brilliant stones. Besides that, it was fused with divine rank endless dew and mysterious mithril gathered from outer space. So, it's at the low grade of the divine rank. It possesses both offensive and defensive abilities. Elder Hu flicked his finger while he spoke, and the armor instantly entered Yang Ye's body. Inspect it yourself. Yang Yi closed his eyes slightly, and it didn't take long for him to open them once more. In an instant, countless swords that were fine like needles had surged out from within him, and they instantly formed a black armor that completely enveloped him. There wasn't a single gap between them. The armor had completely enveloped him to the point even his eyes were covered by an invisible and soft membrane. Moreover, the membranes were actually at the divine rank as well. It could be said that one could only use force to penetrate the sword armor. Besides that, there was no other way. Xianxia moved a little, and numerous sword howls instantly resounded here. What a powerful armor! A wisp of excitement flashed through Xianxia's eyes. The armor didn't feel uncomfortable at all while he wore it, and it simply felt like it was one with him. Meanwhile, Elder Hu said, "It wouldn't be a big deal if that was its only ability. The reason it's called the sword armor is because it's only suitable for sword cultivators. Try pouring your sword intent into it." Xianxia quickly poured his void rank sword intent into the armor. In an instant, the entire armor actually seemed like it had come to life, and numerous sword howls resounded incessantly from Xianxia. At the same time, every single sword needle on Xianxia's armor started to glow. The rays of light shot half a centimeter forward before they started to link together, and they formed a barrier of light which enveloped Xianxia. The barrier of light seemed to be quite thin from the outside, but that wasn't the case at all. The barrier of light was formed from at least 10,000 rays of light, and there were actually over 10,000 layers of light there which had just been condensed together. Elder Hu and Taoist Gu exchanged glances when they witnessed this scene, and they noticed shock in each other's eyes. A short while passed before a complicated expression flashed through Elder Hu's eyes. "Kid, I finally realized that maybe you are the only one who can truly bring forth the might of this armor. Even a saint would find that barrier of light impossible to break through with ease, and even if that barrier of light was destroyed, you still have the armor to protect you. You can be said to be more like a turtle than a turtle itself." Taoist Gu grinned. "This armor would be around the low grade of the divine rank if utilized by an ordinary sword cultivator. But because of your void rank sword intent, it's absolutely not inferior to a mid-grade divine rank treasure." Xianxia nodded with agreement. Once his void rank sword intent surged into the sword armor, it was akin to breathing life into the armor, and the armor strength was countless times stronger than before. The sword armor's defensive capabilities could be said to have completely surpassed the dimensional cube. Elder Hu said, "It can be used offensively as well. Give it a try." Xianxia nodded and issued a command in his heart. "OM." A sword howl resounded as the sword armor suddenly started splitting apart, and it transformed into thousands of rays of light which shot into the air. Bang! The roof of the pavilion exploded apart, and those rays of light shot up towards the sky and seemed to intend to tear even the sky apart. Meanwhile, Elder Hu suddenly cried out involuntarily, "Stop right now!" Xianxia was slightly stunned. When he raised his head and looked carefully, he noticed that the sword formation which was protecting the mountain seemed to have warped from the impact, and it seemed like the formation would shatter at any moment. Xianxia was shocked, and he hurriedly issued a command in his heart. In an instant, the rays of light descended from the sky, and then they surged into Xianxia and formed the sword armor once more. Elder Hu heaved a sigh of relief and said, "It was impossible for it to be so strong before this, but its strength has risen to its limits because of the void rank sword intent you possess. Even we wouldn't dare to act carelessly when facing that armor while it's in your hands. Because just your void rank sword intent is sufficient to injure us, and coupled with those sword needles, we might be heavily injured or even lose our lives if we're even slightly careless." A glow of excitement flickered in Xianxia's eyes. Needless to say, it was extremely powerful and useful. Of course, I'm not saying that you'll definitely be able to kill a saint with that armor in your possession. Meanwhile, Elder Hu spoke seriously. The strength and abilities of saints aren't as simple as you think, especially the saints of the older generation. They possess all sorts of unbelievable abilities. Not to mention even the heavens fear them. So, you must be careful if you encounter a saint in the future. And you can't be careless at all. Brother Hu is right. Taoist Gu said, "Kid, I know that you're very confident in your ability, but you absolutely can't be careless if you encounter a saint. Besides that, there's a gap in strength between saints. Some senior saints are even able to fight numerous saints on their own. So, be careful so that I don't have to bury you one day." Xianxia glanced at them, and his heart felt warm. He immediately nodded and smiled. Don't worry, I'm not that foolish. When he spoke up to this point, Xianxia gazed at the other 4 pillars of light, and his intentions were obvious. The corners of Elder, whose mouth twitched slightly, and a long time passed before he took a light breath. Fine. They are just being lent to you in the end. Elder, who waved his right hand, and one of the pillars of light shattered. A ray of green light flew out from within it and floated before them. The green light dispersed, and a sword appeared in front of them. The sword was around a meter long, 2 fingers wide, and jade green. It was extremely fine, and it emanated a faint green glow. Besides that, there was nothing special about it. It's called Jade Drop, and it's a low-grade divine rank sword refined from mysterious materials and energy. The wielder of the sword can utilize the sword to wield the energy of the sky. As soon as he finished speaking, Elder, who turned around and waved his right hand. One of the other pillars of light shattered, and then another sword appeared in front of them. The sword was similar in length to Jade Drop, and the only difference was its color. It was dark yellow in color. Elder, who continued, it's called Yellow Springs, and it's a low-grade divine rank sword that was similarly refined from mysterious materials and energy. It's a pair with Jade Drop. The wielder of this sword can wield the energy of the earth. If both swords are used together, it's equivalent to utilizing the energy of the heavens and the earth. Let me explain it like this. If you execute a Dao rank technique and enhance it with the energy of the heavens and the earth, then the Dao rank technique would be comparable to a divine rank technique. Xianxia suddenly asked, what if I execute a low-grade divine rank technique and enhance it with the energy of the heavens and the earth? Elder, who replied, I don't know. Huh. The corners of Xianxia's mouth twitched slightly, and he spoke with astonishment. Why don't you? Has no one ever used it? Elder, who nodded. Indeed, because they have harsh requirements towards the wielder's level of sword intent. Only quasi-void rank sword intent is barely able to control them. While the sword master possesses quasi-void rank sword intent, he has his own sword. So he wasn't interested in them. You'll get to benefit from that for now. I won't bring shame to them. Xianxia stretched out his hand and gestured at them once he finished speaking. Both swords instantly entered into his grasps. But it didn't take long for them to start trembling violently, and they seemed as if they intended to struggle free from his grasp. However, they immediately calmed down when Xianxia's void rank sword intent surged into them. Xianxia held Jade Drop in his left hand and Yellow Springs in his right hand. Xianxia was extremely excited because both of them were divine rank treasures, and they were swords. With these 2 swords in his possession, and coupled with the sword armor and dimensional cube, it was equivalent to possessing 4 divine rank treasures. Of course, it was still slightly insufficient for him to slaughter a saint in head-on battle. So Xianxia looked towards the 2 remaining pillars of light. This time, he intended to arm himself to the teeth. Elder, who didn't hesitate to wave his right hand, and one of those pillars of light shattered before an object appeared in front of Xianxia. Xianxia's eyes instantly opened wide when he saw it. What is that? It's at the mid-grade of the divine rank. It's capable of blotting out the sun, tearing the sky apart. Right, that won't do. It can't be lent to you. It's too precious. Elder, whose voice resounded once more. Xianxia's face darkened when he heard Elder, who. May I ask if it is more important, or is my life more important? Elder, who laughed bitterly when he heard this. Kid, we old fellows will either leave this world or experience the end of our lifespan. If we're gone and the sword school has no others who can attain the saint realm, then the sword school will definitely suffer a decline or even be destroyed. You are the future hope of our sword school. So who do you think is most important? Xianxia nodded and spoke seriously. Senior, you should be aware that I might be facing saints once I return to Ocean of Cloud City. Even though I have void rank sword intent, just that isn't sufficient to truly face saints at all. So, that was why I rushed back to the sect to seek help. I understand. Forgive me for being rude. Xianxia interrupted Elder, who and said, Senior, you might not realize that these treasures aren't just treasures to me. They might be things that will save my life. Moreover, I'm returning to Ocean of Cloud City for the sword school, and I can be said to even be disregarding my life for the sect. Yet now, elder who isn't willing to lend me a mere treasure. That truly disappoints me. Yang Yi had a sorrowful and angry expression on his face as he finished speaking. All right. Don't look at me like that. Elder who shrugged. You act like I'm causing your death. Kid, let me remind you that we're only lending it to you. We're just lending them to you, and you have to return them. Yang Yi spoke with displeasure. Do I look like someone who doesn't return what he borrows? You didn't seem like that before this, but you do seem a little like that now. Elder Mu muttered in his heart but didn't voice it out. He was truly quite afraid of Yang Yi. Elder who shook his head and gazed at the thing floating before them. It was a pair of wings. A pair of wings that were formed from countless black finger-sized swords. These small swords were unlike the swords which formed the sword armor. They were very fine, even finer than the wings of a cicada, and they were practically translucent. The entire pair of wings was smooth like a mirror, and it flickered with a ghastly and bone-piercingly cold glow. A wisp of reluctance and complicated emotions flashed through Elder Hu's eyes as he gazed at the wings, and he said, "These wings are called the Dark Sword Wings. All the swords which form the wings were forged from mysterious divine rank aerite rocks. These rocks have a special characteristic, and it's that they are very light to the point they practically have no weight. Besides that, the feathers and bones of the divine beasts Phoenix and Rock were used as well. Simply speaking, it's a treasure that improves its owner's speed. So long as you wear it, even a saint would probably find it difficult to catch up to you. Can surpass the speed of a saint?" Yang Yi took a deep breath and suppressed the excitement and joy he experienced in his heart. He waved his right hand, and the wings instantly entered his body. It didn't take long for a soft explosion to resound as a pair of wings appeared on Yang Ye's back, and then his figure started to slowly rise up into the air. Light. Extremely light. That was what Yang Yi felt right now. Once he activated these wings, he had the misconception that his body was completely weightless, just like this very moment. He hadn't done anything, yet his figure had already floated up into the air. At this moment, he felt light as a feather that would float up from the slightest breeze. Yang Yi closed his eyes slightly and tapped his right foot lightly. Swish! He vanished on the spot, and he was a few hundred meters in the sky when he appeared once more. Moreover, there was a very long and pitch-black spatial rift behind him. It had been torn open because he'd moved too swiftly. With just a light movement, he instantly returned to where he was standing just now. However, his countenance had turned pale while a trace of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. Elder Who spoke solemnly, "Remember that while activating these wings can greatly increase your speed, it exhausts an extremely terrifying amount of energy. Based on the current volume of profound energy that you possess, you'll be able to utilize it for 2 or 3 times at most. Your profound energy will dry up if you use it more than that. Moreover, not just anyone's physical body is capable of enduring such speed. If your physical body wasn't one that far surpassed those in the same realm of cultivation as you, just those 2 movements would have been enough to tear you apart." Meanwhile, Taoist Gu spoke seriously as well. "Kid, divine rank treasures are usually only suitable to be used by saints, and it's very difficult for those beneath the saint realm to utilize divine rank treasures. Regardless of whether it's the dark sword wings, the sword armor, or those 2 swords, you'd have to exhaust a huge amount of profound energy to utilize them. If you overuse your profound energy, then the slightest mistake would be like trapping yourself in a trap of your own making. Especially the dark sword wings. It's at the mid-grade of the divine rank, and its consumption of profound energy far surpasses ordinary divine rank treasures. So, try your best not to utilize it unless you have no other choice. Kid, to be frank, the dark sword wings are there for you to flee. Understand?" Huff! Yang Yi shook his slightly dizzy head, and then nodded lightly while a trace of seriousness could be seen in his eyes. The dark sword wings were so terrifying that they slightly surpassed his imagination. Could be said that even saints wouldn't be able to catch up to him if he activated the dark sword wings. However, Its consumption of profound energy was truly too terrifying. Moreover, it was truly too swift, because even his body was almost unable to endure its speed. His physical body was at an extremely terrifying level, and it could even forcefully endure an attack from a saint, but it wasn't able to fully endure the speed of the dark sword wings. Needless to say, he'd underestimated how terrifying the dark sword wings was. The gap between mid-grade and low-grade divine rank treasures was extremely huge. Elder Hu said, "Actually, it'll greatly improve your speed even if you don't activate it. If the laws of speed you've comprehended are utilized at the same time, then your speed wouldn't be inferior to a saint at all." Xianxia nodded. Just as Elder Hu had said, the dark sword wings itself were capable of improving his speed. His current speed wasn't inferior to a saint, and if he were to activate the dark sword wings, then even a saint's speed would be inferior to his own. Right? It has two other abilities. Elder Hu continued. One of them is that it's capable of expanding at least 1,000 times its original size. I wasn't joking when I said that it could blot out the sun. You can test that ability in the future. As for now, you can test its other ability, and that is its ability to take another form. Try it out yourself. Xianxia was slightly stunned by this revelation, and then he closed his eyes. The dark sword wings behind him slowly started to wriggle, and it didn't take long for the wings to actually transform into a black cape. Xianxia was quite surprised, as he'd never expected that the dark sword wings could transform into a cape, and he immediately asked, "Does this form have other abilities? You might find unexpected uses for it in closed-quartered combat." Elder Hu grinned. "You can slowly discover how to utilize that ability later. Kid, do you know that our sword school has practically given you all its treasures? If you still die under such circumstances, then I can only say that you deserved it. There's one more treasure." Xianxia suddenly pointed at the last pillar of light here. "No! No!" Both Elder Hu and Taoist Gu's expressions changed when they heard him, and they spoke simultaneously. Xianxia was slightly stunned when he heard this, because he hadn't expected both of them to actually object so strongly. Could it be a legendary treasure that's above the divine rank? Xianxia's eyes lit up when he thought up to this point, but it didn't take long for him to return to normal and put on a pitiable expression. "Alas, it's so sad that a half-saint like me has to face saints. It really hurts." It won't work no matter what you say." Elder Hu interrupted Xianxia and said, "If we give that to you, then we wouldn't be helping you but harming you instead." Taoist Gu voiced his opinion as well. "Kid, you absolutely can't be allowed to have that. Just forget it." Xianxia glanced at them, and his expression returned to normal when he noticed the serious expressions on their faces. "Is it a high-grade divine rank treasure?" Elder Hu spoke solemnly. "It surpasses the divine rank." Xianxia's pupils constricted slightly. "It surpasses the divine rank? Then what rank is it?" "It's at the quasi-emperor rank," Taoist Gu replied. "The rank above the divine rank is the emperor rank, and it's the only quasi-emperor rank treasure in our prefecture. It's the ultimate treasure of our sword school as well. The quasi-emperor rank." Xianxia's brows were pressed slightly together as he asked, "It's a sword?" Taoist Gu nodded. "Would I have to fear a sword?" Xianxia continued, "I possess void rank sword intent, so it probably wouldn't reject me. Moreover, even if it does reject me, I still possess void rank sword intent, so why would I have to fear it?" Elder Hu shook his head. "This sword is different. Not to mention that you're only a half-saint, we still can't let you have it even if you're a saint with void rank sword intent. We aren't being stingy, but we would truly be bringing harm to you by allowing you to have it. Perhaps you think that I'm deceiving you, so you can go ahead and ask your master." Xianxia gazed at Taoist Gu, and the latter nodded. "Brother Hu is right. Kid, that sword is too terrifying. Besides the founding ancestor, no one in the history of our sword school has been able to control it. The founding ancestor had intended to take it with her when she left all those years ago, but she felt that it could deter those who held ill intent towards our sword school. Coupled with the fact that it wanted to find a true master for itself, the founding ancestor left it behind when she left." Yang Yi was visibly moved when he heard this. What did it represent when Taoist Gu said that no one besides the founding ancestor of the sword school had been able to control it? It meant that even saints weren't able to do anything to it. So, how heaven-defying was it? Yang Yi pondered deeply for a long time before he said, "Fine, I'll give up on getting it. However, I want to know its background and name." Taoist Gu and Elder Hu exchanged glances, and they instantly heaved sighs of relief. They didn't mind so long as Yang Yi didn't insist on obtaining it. They didn't want to be too forceful towards Yang Yi, so his actions of sensibly choosing to give up on obtaining the sword was naturally for the best. Elder Hu grinned, and then he gazed at the last pillar of light while a trace of complicated emotions appeared in his eyes. Moreover, there was even a trace of fear there. He said, "I don't know about its background. All I know is that it's called Heaven's Gravestone. It's a murderous blade that loves slaughter and thirsts for blood. The founding ancestor once said that anyone from our sword school who possesses an evil and bloodthirsty character could absolutely not be allowed to obtain that sword. Otherwise, it would definitely cause a monstrous calamity." Elder Hu glanced at Yang Yi when he spoke up to this point. "Stop frowning, kid. The founding ancestor was talking about people like you. Kid, you always go to extremes and act willfully. If that sword were to fall into your hands, then perhaps even our sword school would be destroyed by your hands. So you absolutely can't be allowed to have it. Just forget about it. All right, now that you know its name, it's time for us to leave." Yang Ye's face had darkened, and he had the impulse to beat that old fellow up. Yang Yi followed Elder Hu towards the stairway, but he suddenly stopped when he arrived right in front of it, and then he gazed at the pillar of light and said, "Heaven's Gravestone, come with me, all right?" As he spoke, Yang Yi released a strand of his quasi-void rank slaughter intent. Bang! Yang Yi had just finished speaking, when the last pillar of light suddenly exploded apart, and then a dark red ray of light flashed and entered the center of Yang Ye's forehead. Yang Ye's figure stiffened, and then an explosion resounded as a blood-red pillar of light shot out into the sky from within Yang Yi, while the entire pavilion was obliterated. At the same time, a huge hole was blasted open on the sword formation that protected the mountain. In an instant, an area of 5,000 kilometers was dyed blood red, and it seemed like the end of days had arrived. All the experts of the ancient sword school were shocked, and rays of light shot into the sky and rushed off in Yang Ye's direction. What's going on? Have the saints of the Python clan attacked? Impossible! That pillar of blood came from within our sword school. Could there have been a traitor in our midst? Shit! What a dense bloody aura. It's even capable of corroding the mind. Quickly activate your sword intent to resist it. What exactly is going on? Elder Hu was quite stunned as he witnessed the scene before him. Meanwhile, Jian Wuchen and 4 other old men appeared by Elder Hu's side. Elder Hu gulped and pointed at Yang Yi, who was frozen on the spot. That kid said, "Heaven's Gravestone, come with me." And then Heaven's Gravestone flew into him. That shouldn't have happened. How could that have happened? Why would it choose that kid? It doesn't make sense. Heaven's Gravestone acknowledged him as its master. Jian Wuchen had an extremely solemn expression on his face. It wasn't just Jian Wuchen. The other saints revealed similar expressions. Suddenly, they thought of something, and the solemn expressions on their faces transformed into unsightly ones. That kid's character and disposition is a perfect match for Heaven's Gravestone. Alas, a calamity is upon us. Elder Hu, I'm not trying to blame you, but how could you have allowed him to come into contact with Heaven's Gravestone? Losing that sword isn't a huge deal, but what if that kid is destroyed by it? Our sword school will definitely suffer a decline in the future if that happens. One of the old men gazed at Elder Hu and spoke with distress. Elder Hu's face twitched, and then he spoke bitterly. "I swear, I really never expected him to be able to obtain Heaven's Gravestone's acknowledgement. After all, I would have absolutely not brought him here if I knew in advance." At this moment, he truly regretted bringing Yang Yi here. Jian Wuchen shook his head. "Perhaps the situation isn't hopeless yet. That kid possesses void rank sword intent. Perhaps he'll be able to suppress the evil aura and intent to kill that heaven's gravestone carries. One of the saints suddenly said, "What if he can't?" Jian Wuchen spoke in an icy cold tone, while a cold glow flickered in his eyes. "He has to." "Indeed," Elder Hu spoke solemnly. "If the owner can't control the sword, then the owner would be enslaved by it. At that time, he wouldn't be himself anymore. If he can't control it, then we'll have no choice but to put him down. Otherwise, he'll become a calamity for our sword school." All of them nodded to display their agreement. Xianxia's body was entirely enveloped by the blood-red pillar of light, and his body was trembling incessantly, while his void-rank sword intent ceaselessly suppressed the intent to kill and aura of evil. Xianxia's body slowly started to undergo changes. His body started to change color, and it was turning blood red. Jian Wuchen and the others' pupils constricted when they witnessed this scene, and they slowly clenched their fists. It didn't take long for Xianxia's neck, face, and even his eyes to turn blood red. Bang! Meanwhile, void-rank sword intent suddenly surged out from within Xiangyi and appeared on Xianxia's left. But it didn't take long for a red ray of light to surge out from within him and appear on his right. Both intents were ceaselessly trying to suppress each other, but his void-rank sword intent was at a complete disadvantage right now. Void-rank slaughter intent. Jian Wuchen and the others were astounded when they saw the red glow, and Elder Hu cried out involuntarily, "How? How could that kid possess void-rank slaughter intent? Even if Heaven's gravestone could improve his slaughter intent, it's impossible for it to instantly bring it to the void rank." He had quasi-void rank slaughter intent. Jian Wuchen took a deep breath and clenched his fists. "I really can't imagine how insane he would be if he were to be enslaved by Heaven's gravestone while possessing void rank slaughter intent." One of the saints spoke solemnly. "That kid is tenacious, and he possesses the enlightened sword heart, so he practically has no flaws. Perhaps he'll be able to suppress Heaven's gravestone." As soon as that saint finished speaking, Xiangxia's hair instantly turned red. At the same time, Xiangxia's void-rank sword intent was completely suppressed and pushed back into his body. Once his void-rank sword intent vanished, a tiny blood-red sword that had no hilt had instantly appeared at the center of Xiangxia's forehead. Jian Wuchen's pupils constricted at the sight of this, and he shouted, "Act now! Suppress him!" Suddenly, Xiangyi opened his eyes, and then two beams of blood-red light shot out from them towards one of the saints in front of him. The old man's expression changed slightly as he flicked his finger, and a strand of sword intent shot forward and collided with those beams of red light. Bang! The sword energy was actually dispersed in an instant, and those beams of red light instantly struck the old man. Hiss! Hiss! Two bloody holes appeared on the old man's body while he took 2 steps back. Meanwhile, Jian Wuchen and the others made their move, and 6 rays of light descended upon Xiangyi for different directions. A cruel and savage smile curled up on the corners of Xiangyi's mouth. He clenched his right hand and a blood-red sword that had no hilt appeared in his grasp. Xiangyi's arm immediately split open once it was condensed, and then threads of blood surged out from Xiangyi's arm and entered the sword, causing it to grow even more solid and shocking. After that, he waved it. A blood-red beam of sword energy shot forward. Bang! The sword energy from Jian Wuchen and the others were instantly blasted apart, and the blood-red sword energy didn't slow down as it shot towards them. Their expressions changed slightly. Obviously, they hadn't expected that Xiangyi actually possessed the strength to blast their sword energy apart with ease. Jian Wuchen's eyes narrowed slightly as he took a step forward and waved his right hand. A ray of light shot forward and smashed against the blood-red beam of sword energy. Bang! A huge explosion resounded as they exploded apart, and Jian Wuchen was pushed 2 steps back. The others' expressions changed when they witnessed this scene. An elder who spoke solemnly, "Don't hold back. He possesses Heaven's gravestone's strength now, and coupled with the 2 void rank intents he possesses, he isn't inferior to an ordinary saint. We can't hold back, otherwise." Jian Wuchen suddenly cried out involuntarily, "Watch out!" At the exact same instant that Jian Wuchen spoke, Yang Yi suddenly transformed into a blood-red ray of light that vanished on the spot, and he was behind Elder Hu when he appeared again. As for Elder Hu, his figure had stiffened, and there was a hole on his chest. Elder Hu's figure froze on the spot while shock filled his eyes. A divine rank sword technique, too intense. Heaven's gravestone. As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Hu's figure fell backwards to the ground. Fortunately, one of the other saints hurriedly supported his falling figure and tossed a violet crystal in his mouth. Only then were Elder Hu's injuries stabilized. "Kid, you've gone mad!" Jian Wuchen roared furiously when he saw Yang Yi almost kill Elder Hu, and he made a chopping motion in Yang Ye's direction. A beam of sword energy shot forward, and it was so swift that Yang Yi hadn't even been able to react to it. Bang! Yang Yi was blasted over 3 kilometers away. However, he was completely unharmed because the sword armor had covered his body when Jian Wuchen attacked. The corners of Jian Wuchen and the others' mouths twitched when they witnessed this scene. Meanwhile, one of the saints spoke abruptly. "What's that kid trying to do?" All of the others looked over and saw that Yang Yi had suddenly pressed the blood-red sword against the center of his forehead, and his eyes were closed. Meanwhile, a strand of monstrous slaughter intent and evil energy swept out from Yang Yi and actually caused the space around him to crack apart. Numerous arm-thick cracks were spreading swiftly, and it only took an instant for them to cover a huge area. The others' eyelids twitched, and an extremely solemn expression appeared in their eyes, because Elder Hu had almost been instantly killed by that exact same technique. Jian Wuchen's eyes narrowed slightly while he clenched his right hand. "Kid, I'll have no choice but to cripple you if you still don't come back to your senses." However, Yang Ye's aura was still growing stronger and stronger, and the monstrous intent to kill caused all beneath the Saint Realm throughout Ancient Sword Peak to be affected, and they were on the verge of being transformed into machines of slaughter. That was exactly why Jian Wuchen and the others had no choice but to go to extremes. Bang! A pillar of blood shot into the air once more, and it pierced through the sky. Jian Wuchen and the others' faces gradually turned gloomy. Suddenly, Yang Ye's void rank sword intent surged out, and his blood-red eyes cleared up slightly, but he was still struggling to maintain it. Roar! Yang Yi suddenly roared with fury, and then his figure vanished on the spot while leaving a long spatial rift through the sky. One of the saints asked, "Should we pursue him?" Jian Wuchen hesitated for a moment, and then he shook his head. "We underestimated him. He probably hasn't been fully demonified. His will far surpasses any ordinary person. So perhaps he might be able to resist Heaven's gravestone's corruption. Alas, it all depends on his own fortune." A red ray of light descended to a mountain range over 10,000 kilometers away. Bang! A huge explosion resounded as everything in an area of over 5,000 kilometers was blasted into powder. As for the exact spot where Yang Yi descended, the ground had collapsed by over 3 kilometers, and a deep abyss had appeared there. Yang Yi was on his right knee at the bottom of it, and the blood-red sword in his right hand was still absorbing his blood. The violet mink and Snowy were in front of Yang Yi. The violet mink was looking at him with horror and panic on her face. As for Snowy, she was trembling while she hid behind the violet mink and gazed at Yang Yi with horror in her eyes. Suddenly, Yang Yi raised his head, and then his blood-red sword shot towards the violet mink and Snowy. The violet mink's eyes opened wide when she saw Yang Ye's sword descend towards her, and she actually forgot to flee. She hadn't expected that Yang Yi would attack her. After all, how could he attack her? As far as she was concerned, Yang Yi would never attack her no matter what. So, she wasn't vigilant against Yang Yi at all, and she trusted him completely. However, Yang Yi had actually raised his hand against her right now. Snowy's eyes opened wide as well, and she was so terrified that she fainted on the spot. Right when the sword was about to strike the violet mink's head, it suddenly stopped. Yang Ye's hand was trembling, and his face had warped. He was visibly struggling. When she saw Yang Yi in such a state, 2 streams of tears slowly flowed out from the violet mink's eyes. Her heart was full of pain. It wasn't for herself. It was for Yang Yi. because she knew that Yang Yi was definitely suffering. Ah! Suddenly, Yang Yi roared with fury, and the earthen walls of the abyss instantly started cracking apart from the sound waves. Swish! Swish! Jade drop and yellow springs suddenly flew into the air. They transformed into rays of light that stabbed into Yang Ye's right and left hands, and they nailed him to the ground. That wasn't the end of it. For more swords flew out from within Yang Yi, and they nailed his legs on the ground as well. In an instant, Yang Yi was nailed firmly to the ground by 6 swords. The violet mink was shocked by this scene and was about to try and help. However, Yang Yi suddenly said, Don't do anything." The violet mink was delighted when she heard this, and she hurriedly flew over to Yang Yi. But she was instantly blasted away by the blood-red glow that was surging out from Yang Yi. Don't come close for now." Yang Yi spoke word by word while his face was still warped from the pain he was enduring. His entire body was trembling incessantly while rays after ray of blood-red light was surging out incessantly from him, and it only took a few breaths of time for the entire abyss to be dyed blood-red. The violet mink didn't dare come close to Yang Yi. She just stayed far away and gazed at him while tears filled her eyes. Yang Yi suddenly cracked a smile and said, Don't worry. I won't lose. I won't lose to it. It actually dared to control me to kill you. I'll kill it." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi roared with fury as the void rank sword intent within him swept out. At the same time, a red ray of light swept out as well, and the two types of intents started to try and suppress each other again. Meanwhile, a voice resounded in Yang Ye's mind. "Why resist me? Submit to me, and I'll give you endless strength. So long as we join forces, would anyone in this world be able to stop us? Saints? They would be ants before us. Those above the saint realm? Those would just be slightly bigger ants. Come, submit to me. We'll slaughter this dirty world together. Slaughter my ass." Yang Yi roared furiously. "Bastard! You actually dared to try and make me kill my Zir. Just you wait. I'll destroy you." Heaven's Gravestone's actions had clearly touched Yang Ye's true, reverse scale. "You can't defeat me," the voice continued, "because the heart of slaughter has formed in your heart." The heart of slaughter? Yang Yi frowned as he immersed his mind into his body, and his expression changed when he saw his heart. Because his heart was actually a strange dark red color, and it emanated threads of slaughter intent. Now, your heart will stop beating if it isn't nurtured by slaughter intent. So, you must kill, the voice continued. Moreover, the might of your void rank slaughter intent will at least double from the presence of the heart of slaughter within you. Regardless of whether it is your void rank slaughter intent or the heart of slaughter, I gave both of them to you. You would just be an ant without me. Why did you come to me if you are that powerful? Yang Yi laughed coldly. If I'm not wrong, you need someone to be your vessel in order to bring forth your true might. Or I should say that you need to grow, and you need to rely on someone to grow. In the end, you're just a sword. You're courting death. A furious howl resounded in Yang Ye's mind, and then a ray of blood-red light swept through Yang Ye's body and pressed down towards his void rank sword intent. Yang Ye's void rank sword intent started to be gradually pushed back into his body under the pressure of the red light. At the same time, Yang Ye's eyes that had cleared up slightly had started to gradually turn red again. Fuck you! Yang Yi roared as he activated the sword domain, and the void rank slaughter intent was stopped for a moment under the suppressive force of the sword domain. But it didn't take long for the void rank slaughter intent to actually start resisting his sword domain. Countless rays of red light surged out incessantly from within Yang Yi, and wave after wave of it slammed against his sword domain. Yang Ye's sword domain actually showed signs of collapsing and being destroyed before frenzied attacks of the void rank slaughter intent. The sword domain. Unfortunately, your cultivation is too low, so you're unable to take full control of it. The voice resounded once more within Yang Ye's mind. Yang Yi, you're a man who loves to slaughter. We are a match made in heaven. You just have to submit to me, and no one in this world will be able to resist our joint forces. Stop resisting me. Stop hesitating. Submit and I'll grant you endless strength. How powerful! Xianxia's heart shook when he saw that even his sword domain was actually unable to suppress the void rank slaughter intent that came from within him. He knew that he was truly in deep trouble this time, because not to mention him, even a saint couldn't resist the strength of a treasure like Heaven's Gravestone, which was a quasi-emperor rank sword. Now wonder no one dared to try and obtain it after the founding ancestor of the ancient sword school left. It wasn't that they didn't want to, they didn't dare to. What should I do? Yang Yi had quite an anxious expression on his face when he sensed that the intent to slaughter an aura of evil had started to collide incessantly with his mind. Suddenly, his eyes lit up because he realized that he'd actually almost forgotten the most important thing in his possession. The tiny vortex. Was Heaven's Gravestone stronger than the tiny vortex? As far as Yang Yi was concerned, not to mention that it was only a quasi-emperor rank sword, it would be impossible for Heaven's Gravestone to be superior to the tiny vortex even if it was an emperor rank sword. After all, how could a mere sword compare to something that even the Heaven Dao feared? Yang Yi pondered deeply when he thought up to this point, and then he said, I can submit to you, but you have to help me do something. Succeed. And I'll submit to you and accept your strength. Otherwise, I'll refuse even if it kills me. A long moment of silence ensued before Heaven's Gravestone's voice resounded once more in Yang Ye's mind. What do you need? Yang Yi said, See that tiny vortex within me. It has been living within me and constantly taking my profound energy, causing my cultivation to be unable to improve swiftly. But I'm unable to remove it because I'm too weak. We can join forces if you can remove it for me or destroy it. All right? A tiny vortex? Heaven's Gravestone's voice carried a trace of bewilderment, and it pondered deeply for a long time before it said, You'll really be willing to submit to me if I help you eliminate it? Yang Yi spoke with absolute certainty. Of course. Heaven's Gravestone remained silent for a long time before it said, All right, I'll help you eliminate it. Yang Yi suddenly asked, Where's your physical body? Even though the sword in his hand was huge and wasn't weaker to a divine rank sword at all. His intuition told him that it wasn't Heaven's Gravestone's true body. I don't have one, Heaven's Gravestone continued. I exist while blood exists, and so long as the heart of slaughter remains or isn't purified, then I will remain eternal. So we can be considered to be one now. The corners of Yang Ye's mouth twitched upon hearing this. This fellow is bound to me now. I'll help you deal with that tiny vortex right now. As soon as it finished speaking, a ray of red light swept out from Yang Ye's heart and surged towards the tiny vortex. Yang Yi watched as it charged into the tiny vortex. A breath of time passed. 2 breaths of time passed. 3 breaths of time passed. Bang! Suddenly, the tiny vortex revolved, and then an invisible force shot out from within it and instantly slammed against Yang Ye's heart. Ah! An extremely miserable and shrill cry resounded in Yang Ye's mind, and even Yang Ye's mind blurred and was almost knocked out from the collision. Ah! What is that thing? What is that? Heaven's Gravestone's horrified voice resounded incessantly within Yang Ye's mind. It didn't just carry horror. It was even trembling as if Heaven's Gravestone had encountered something terrifying. Heaven's Gravestone's miserable cries gradually weakened, and they were soft like the buzz of a mosquito in the end. At this moment, Yang Ye's mind was extremely dizzy and heavy as if it was filled with lead. He really wanted to fall into deep sleep, but he didn't dare to let that happen, because he was afraid that Heaven's Gravestone would take control of him again if he fell asleep, and then he would become a complete puppet for slaughter. Yang Yi forcefully endured the intense pain in his heart and the heavy feeling in his head, and he activated his void rank sword intent to suppress the slaughter intent within him. At this moment, Heaven's Gravestone was heavily injured, and it was his best opportunity to regain control. Ocean of Cloud City. A dense ocean of demon beasts stood outside the city, and it was an army formed from the forces of the Python clan, Welkin Wolf clan, and Steel Ape clan. The forces of the 3 clans of demon beasts were respectively stationed outside the main gates, the northern gates, and the southern gates. Moreover, The gazes in the eyes of all the demon beasts here simply seemed like they were waiting to devour everything within the city. In Ocean of Clouds City, Xianxia, the other saints of Ocean of Clouds Academy, and Zhu Yuan were standing on the city walls at the main gates while Yu Wushuang, Shang Qingying, and Oblivion Maiden stood by their sides. Ocean of Clouds Academy. It's time to die. Welkin Wolf Demon King's voice resounded from high above in the sky. Ow! Countless demon beasts howled, and then they charged towards the city. At this moment, there was no need for them to waste their breaths at all. Capture Yu Wushuang alive. Slaughter the others without mercy. Elder Yun from Sky Divine Palace gazed at Yu Wushuang, who stood on the city walls. I'll take care of these two fellows. I'll leave the rest to all of you. We'll fight to the bloody end today. As soon as Xianxia finished speaking, his figure flashed and charged towards Elder Mo and Elder Yun. You're courting death. Both of them grunted coldly as they attacked simultaneously, and they fought for a moment before entering a pocket of space with Xianxia. Let me see who can save your academy today. Welkin Wolf Demon King laughed coldly and was about to attack. However, his expression suddenly changed slightly, and he looked up into the horizon. There was a slight black dot in the horizon, and it was growing larger. It took less than a breath of time for a colossus to appear in the sky above the city. It was a dragon of legend. A completely pitch-black dragon had appeared above the city, and it was even at the saint rank. Roar! The dragon suddenly roared furiously towards the ground below, and a strand of dragon pressure rained down from above. In an instant, all the attacking demon beasts laid flat on the ground. The expressions of Welkin Wolf Demon King and the others changed drastically, and they revealed solemn and fearful expressions in their eyes. The forces of Ocean of Cloud City were delighted instead. Even though they were quite stunned by this sudden turn of events, and they didn't know why a dragon had appeared here, it didn't matter to them because the dragon had acted against the demon beasts. The black dragon descended slowly, and it stopped in midair outside the city. Meanwhile, everyone here was astounded to realize that a man was standing on the dragon's back. Oblivion Maiden's beautiful brows were pressed slightly together as she spoke softly. It's him! Yu Wushuang heard Oblivion Maiden and immediately asked, You know him? Who is he? Oblivion Maiden glanced at Yu Wushuang, and then she hesitated for a moment before she said, The Lu clan! The Lu clan? Yu Wushuang frowned. She was about to inquire more about the Lu clan, but the man on the dragon suddenly spoke. Yang Yi, show yourself and come with me. His voice carried an indisputable tone. The man wore luxurious and embroidered clothes and a jade belt. He had straight eyebrows that were slanted upwards, a gaze that was cold as ice, and a tall and thin figure. He seemed noble like a brilliant sun that hung high above in the sky. Nobility. That was the feeling which everyone sensed from the man. As he stood on the back of the black dragon and looked down upon everyone on the ground below, he seemed like a god who was looking down at mortals. Because of the arrival of the man in embroidered clothes and the black dragon, both the forces of Ocean of Cloud City and the army of demon beasts had stopped. No matter which side it was, they didn't dare to act rashly until they confirmed whether the man in embroidered clothes and the black dragon were their friends or foes. Where's Yang Yi? The man in embroidered clothes frowned when he saw no one respond from within the city, and he asked the same question again. Instructor Zhua hesitated for a moment, and then he asked, May I know why you're looking for Yang Yi? Even though the man was only a high-rank half-saint, Instructor Zhua didn't dare underestimate the man. Because since the man could stand on the back of a member of the dragon race that was renowned throughout the radiant dimension for their pride, it was sufficient to tell him a huge number of things. You don't need to know. The man in embroidered clothes glanced coldly at Instructor Zhua, and he didn't have any intention to show respect even if Instructor Zhua was a saint. My time is precious, and I don't want to waste it here. Make him come here now, right now. His voice still carried an indisputable tone, and it even carried a trace of ghastly coldness. Instructor Zhua's face instantly turned livid when he heard this. As a saint, when had he been treated like this? If it was at any other ordinary time, he would have attacked even if the man had a saint realm dragon beneath him. After all, the dignity of a saint allowed no disrespect. However, it was a critical moment for the war between Ocean of Clouds Academy and Welkin Wolf Mountain Range, so he exercised forbearance in the end. Instructor Zhuo forcefully suppressed the rage in his heart and spoke coldly. Yang Yi isn't in the city right now. Please go somewhere else if you want to find him. Roar. Suddenly, the black dragon roared furiously at Instructor Zhuo, and a wave of flames sprayed forward and shot towards Instructor Zhuo. Instructor Zhuo's expression changed slightly when this happened, and he swiftly slapped his right palm forward. A huge energy palm flashed forward and collided with the flames. Bang! An explosion resounded as Instructor Zhuo's attack was instantly dispersed, and the flames weren't slowed down at all as they instantly slammed against Instructor Zhuo. Pooh! A mouthful of blood sprayed from Instructor Zhuo's mouth while he moved backwards repeatedly, and he was pushed around 3 kilometers back before he was finally able to stop himself. Everyone in the city was shocked by this scene. As for Welkin Wolf Demon King and the others, they were overjoyed, because it was sufficient to prove that the black dragon and the man in embroidered clothes weren't friends of the academy. They were enemies. The other 3 saints from the academy shot up into the air and surrounded the black dragon and the man. However, they didn't attack. One of the saints from the academy spoke solemnly. Who are you? Why are you acting against my academy? The man glanced at the saint from the academy and said, Acting against your academy? You think too highly of your academy. I don't want to waste time and I don't want to go searching for Yang Yi. I don't care how you do it. Just make Yang Yi come see me right away. If he doesn't come here in a breath of time, then I'll kill 100 people. If he doesn't come here in 10 breaths of time, I'll kill 1,000. I'll kill until there's no one left in your city. The expressions of the saints from the academy changed. Meanwhile, Welkin Wolf Demon King's voice resounded once more. My Welkin Wolf Mountain Range's forces are willing to help you keep them occupied. The man glanced at Welkin Wolf Demon King and said, Aloud! Welkin Wolf Demon King was delighted when he heard this, and then he gazed at the saints of the academy. Stop them from interfering! The saints behind him immediately charged towards the saints of the academy when they heard his command, and it didn't take long for all 8 of them to enter pockets of space. Welkin Wolf Demon King gazed at Zhu Yuan, who was the final saint on Ocean of Clouds Academy's side, and he said, Do you want to enter a pocket of space with me? Zhu Yuan's face was gloomy, but he remained silent. Welkin Wolf Demon King laughed coldly while a wisp of ridicule hung on the corners of his mouth. Kill! The man gazed at the city below. As soon as he spoke, the black dragon raised its claw and swung it down towards the city below, and then over 100 people were transformed into mush. Everyone in the city was horrified by the sight of this. Zhu Yuan's eyelids twitched. He hadn't expected the man to actually kill the inhabitants of the city. He glanced at the man, and then he glanced at the black dragon before lowering his head slightly while his gaze flickered. No one knew what he was thinking. Continue. The man's voice resounded again. The black dragon raised its claw and swung it down again. Bang! A few hundred in the city instantly exploded apart. Countless people were shocked and horrified, and they started to flee in all directions. In an instant, the entire city was in chaos. Meanwhile, one of the old men by Welkin Wolf Demon King's side asked in a low voice, Should we attack? Welkin Wolf Demon King glanced at the man in embroidered clothes and the black dragon, and then he pondered deeply for a moment before he shook his head. That fellow is a proud person. He'll definitely feel displeased if we attack. There's no need to offend him right now. Moreover, I want to wait for Yang Yi to show himself as well. As he finished speaking, Welkin Wolf Demon King's face had instantly turned gloomy, and his voice carried ghastly killing intent. Yang Yi had caused the deaths of countless wolf demons, killed his children and wife, and even robbed his treasury. He truly hated Yang Yi to the bone. Moreover, he'd sworn on his soul that he would remain at the Saint Realm for eternity if he couldn't kill Yang Yi. Howls of sorrow and fear resounded throughout the city. On the walls in the direction of the main gates, Yu Wushuang's face was ghastly pale as she watched the scene before her eyes. For the very first time, she felt how tiny she was. All the wisdom in the world was useless before absolute strength. just like this very moment. Even someone as intelligent as her could only watch as the residents of the city were slaughtered. Meanwhile, Oblivion Maiden, who stood by Yu Wushuang's side, suddenly asked, "Will he come back?" Yu Wushuang was slightly stunned, and then she nodded. "I don't want him to come back, but he definitely will." "That's all I wanted to hear." Oblivion Maiden nodded slightly, and then she lowered her head and started to pet the fox in her arms while revealing a gentle gaze in her eyes. Yu Wushuang gazed at Oblivion Maiden when she heard this, and she stared straight at Oblivion Maiden. "You hope that he comes back?" Oblivion Maiden nodded. The corners of Yu Wushuang's eyes twitched upon hearing this. She sized up Oblivion Maiden, and a long time passed before a trace of vigilance appeared in her eyes. At this moment, she suddenly noticed that the woman who stood before seemed to have been too composed since the very beginning. In the abyss, Xianxia sat cross-legged on the ground while he emanated sharp void rank sword intent. At this moment, his hair and body had returned to normal. However, the tiny blood-red sword on the center of his forehead still remained there, and that mark made him look quite strange. The violet mink and Snowy, who'd regained consciousness, were by Xiangxia's side. She instantly heaved a sigh of relief in her heart when she saw Xianxia return to normal. But she still didn't dare approach Xianxia, as she was really afraid of causing a mishap. As for Snowy, she was hiding behind the violet mink, and she was looking at Xianxia with slight fear in her eyes. Even though Xiangxia's outer appearance had returned to normal and seemed to be fine now, that wasn't the case at all. At this moment, Xiangxia's heart was still dark red in color, and it emanated terrifying slaughter intent that made even his heart palpitate. His void rank sword intent had gained the upper hand because Heaven's gravestone had been heavily injured, so he was utilizing his void rank sword intent to purify his heart of slaughter. Was the heart of slaughter strong? It was extremely strong, of course. His void rank slaughter intent was simply capable of crushing his void rank sword intent while it was supported by the heart of slaughter. But no matter how strong it wasn't something he could keep. Why? Because it wasn't something he'd attained through his own cultivation. It was something Heaven's gravestone had created within him. So, if he didn't purify it, then Heaven's gravestone might stage a comeback and try to take control of him at any time. So, he had to purify the heart of slaughter. However, after trying to purify it for over 4 hours, Xianxia noticed that his efforts were of no effect at all. The heart of slaughter showed no signs of being purified. Xiangxia's brows were pressed tightly together. He hadn't expected that Heaven's gravestone would create something like this, and that it would actually be so terrifying that even his void rank sword intent couldn't do anything to it. Xianxia refused to give up, and he continued trying with his void rank sword intent. The heart of slaughter was an unstable variable within him, because his intuition told him that so long as he dared to utilize his slaughter intent, then Heaven's gravestone would definitely awaken in an instant. His current strength was utterly insufficient to take control of Heaven's gravestone. So if it were to awaken, then he would almost definitely fall under its control. He wanted to possess formidable strength, but he didn't want to allow himself to be controlled and become an emotionless machine of slaughter. Another 4 hours passed, yet the heart of slaughter still remained. Xianxia took a deep breath and slowly opened his eyes, and there was a trace of helplessness in his eyes. No matter how hard he tried, the heart of slaughter remained tenacious. The facts of the situation proved that his void rank sword intent was completely helpless against it. If Heaven's gravestone hadn't been heavily injured by the primordial pagoda, then not to mention attempting to purify the heart of slaughter, his sword intent wouldn't even be able to resist his slaughter intent. Xianxia had no choice but to utilize his void rank sword intent to envelop the heart of slaughter in layers. The reason he did that was because he felt it would be slightly safer. In short, he absolutely didn't dare to utilize his slaughter intent now, because utilizing it was equivalent to summoning Heaven's gravestone. That was something he absolutely couldn't summon before he possessed absolute strength, because he would truly lose all control if that happened. A ray of violet light flashed, and the violet mink appeared in front of Xianxia. She wrapped her arms around Xiangxia's face, and then she ceaselessly rubbed her forehead against his nose while tears rolled down her eyes. The slightly timid white-colored little fellow was behind the violet mink. She wanted to come close to Yang Yi, but she seemed to be worried about something and dared not do that. Yang Yi felt a wave of lingering fear as he gazed at the violet mink. After all, he'd almost killed her just now. If he'd really done that, then he would live the remainder of his life in boundless pain. Fortunately, she'd been able to summon a trace of clarity from within him. Yang Yi took a deep breath, rubbed the violet mink's head, and then grabbed Snowy, who was standing timidly behind the violet mink. "All right, it's fine now. Don't worry, that won't happen again." The violet mink hurriedly nodded. Yang Yi had truly been terrifying when he became like that just now, and she really didn't want to see him like that again. Snowy hurriedly nodded as well, because she was really afraid of Yang Yi, who'd turned red. Yang Yi smiled. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed. "Shit! The city!" As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi vanished into the horizon with the violet mink and Snowy. Ocean of Cloud City. At this moment, a few 100,000 human cultivators had lost their lives, and the death toll was still rising rapidly. However, Yang Yi still hadn't shown himself. "He isn't coming?" The man in embroidered clothes nodded slightly, and he said, "Let's save ourselves the trouble and just slaughter the entire city. The entire city. Slaughter the entire city." The cultivators of Ocean of Cloud City instantly turned ghastly pale when they heard him, and they looked up at the man in embroidered clothes and the black dragon with horror in their eyes. No one felt that he was lying, and no one doubted his ability to accomplish that. Terror, deep terror filled their hearts. Helplessness, absolute helplessness washed over them. They could fight when facing the demon beasts, and they would fight to the bloody end. However, there was only terror and helplessness in their hearts when they faced the black dragon at the Saint Realm. "Wait!" Suddenly, the voice of the only saint on Ocean of Cloud City's side resounded. Everyone looked at Zhu Yuan, and there was a trace of hope in their eyes. It was none other than because Zhu Yuan was a saint, and he was the only saint left on their side. Welkin Wolf Demon King gazed at Zhu Yuan and ridiculed. "What? You finally aren't able to restrain yourself?" The man and Black Dragon gazed at Zhu Yuan as well. The man's gaze was calm while the dragon's eyes were filled with a vicious glow. Zhu Yuan glanced at them and said, "From this moment onward, my Tao order will cease to interfere in the affairs of Ocean of Clouds Academy. Disciples of my Tao order, heed my order. Leave with me." Everyone in the city gazed at Zhu Yuan with disbelief when they heard this. They hadn't expected that Zhu Yuan would actually intend to lead the experts of the Tao order away during such a crisis. If the Tao order's forces left, then what would the southern gates which were defended by the Tao order do? How would Ocean of Cloud City resist Welkin Wolf Mountain Range once Zhu Yuan left? It couldn't. It could only be slaughtered. None of them had the strength to resist a saint. Shang Qingying spoke in a low voice from atop the city walls. "Senior Zhu Yuan, what's the meaning of this?" Zhu Yuan waved his hand. "My Tao order has already fulfilled its duty to Ocean of Clouds Academy. It isn't necessary for us to die for the Academy's sake. No, for Yang Ye's sake. Yang Yi has offended that man, yet he hides and refuses to show himself with the intention of making us die on his behalf. Humph. I don't care what your Academy thinks or does. In any case, my Tao order refuses to die for him." Shang Qingying said, "Yang Yi has gone to the Bear Clan to get help. He'll be back. He'll be back." Zhu Yuan laughed coldly. "It doesn't take long at all to travel to and from the Bear Clan. If the Bear Clan agreed to lend a hand, then the Bear King would have brought Yang Yi back a long time ago. Since he's not here, it proves that the Bear Clan has refused to help. As for Yang Yi, in my opinion, he's hiding like a coward." Shang Qingying intended to continue, but Yu Wushuang waved her hand. "There's no need to say anything else. He doesn't want to leave because of Yang Yi. Yang Yi is just an excuse to leave the city." Zhu Yuan glanced at Yu Wushuang and spoke coldly. "Little girl, since you've exposed it, then I'll just be frank. My Tao order agreed to help Ocean of Clouds Academy. But Ocean of Clouds Academy doesn't have any hope of victory now. My Tao order will absolutely not give away the lives of our elites for the sake of your academy. Yu Wushuang gazed at Zhu Yuan and said, "There's no need to say anything else. Just do as you wish." Zhu Yuan grunted coldly, and then he turned to look at the disciples of the Tao order. "Everyone leave with me. Wait." Meanwhile, Welkin Wolf Demon King's voice resounded abruptly. Zhu Yuan gazed at Welkin Wolf Demon King and said, "What?" Welkin Wolf Demon King grunted coldly and said, "Wouldn't your Tao order be getting off too easily if you're allowed to leave just like that?" Zhu Yuan, "Then what do you expect?" A ferocious smile appeared on Welkin Wolf Demon King's face. "You want to leave? You can. But you have to make Yang Yi show himself first. Otherwise, no one from Yu Dao Order can hope to leave today." Zhu Yuan spoke in a low voice. "I don't know where he is." Welkin Wolf Demon King said, "But you definitely know how to make him show himself, right?" The man in embroidered clothes gazed at Zhu Yuan as well upon hearing this. "Make him show himself, or all of you can stay behind and be buried with him." As soon as the man spoke, the black dragon's gaze locked onto Zhu Yuan while a terrifying wave of dragon pressure rained down and enveloped both Zhu Yuan and the other members of the Tao Order. Zhu Yuan's eyelids twitched. He pondered deeply for a long time before he said, "I really don't know where he is. However, I have a way to force him to show himself." The man asked, "How?" Zhu Yuan was about to speak when Fu Jingxian suddenly said, "Elder Zhu, please reconsider. Yang Yi is a vengeful person. If he finds out that our Tao Order stabbed him in the back, then he'll definitely take revenge. Perhaps he doesn't have the strength to shake our Tao Order now, but he'll definitely be able to in the future. The founding ancestor did what he did so that we would be reconciled with him. Elder Zhu, you absolutely can't allow the founding ancestor's efforts to be wasted." Fu Jingxian knew Yang Yi well, and she knew that he was definitely one who would kill anyone that dared to bring harm to him. The Tao Order would naturally have no need to fear it if it was any other person. But was Yang Yi ordinary? Would someone capable of surviving divine lightning of obliteration be ordinary? She could imagine that with Yang Ye's potential and strength, if Yang Yi wanted to take revenge on the Tao Order, then it would definitely be a calamity for the Tao Order. Zhu Yuan's expression changed slightly when he heard Fu Jingxian. Even though he disliked Yang Yi, he didn't dare underestimate Yang Yi. What a joke! Even the founding ancestor of the Tao Order didn't dare underestimate Yang Yi. So how could he? Moreover, he'd personally witnessed the strength and potential that Yang Yi possessed. And if Yang Yi were to be allowed to grow. No, not to mention then, Yang Yi was a threat to the Tao Order even now. Zhu Yuan, you're really getting worse as you age. Meanwhile, Welkin Wolf Demon King ridiculed. Yang Yi is only a half-saint. No matter how great of a monstrous genius he is, how terrifying can he be? If it wasn't for the protection that he receives from the saints of the Ancient Sword School and the Ocean of Clouds Academy, killing him would be as easy as crushing an ant, right? Zhu Yuan glanced coldly at Welkin Wolf Demon King, and he was hesitating. Meanwhile, the man in embroidered clothes suddenly spoke. "I don't have much patience. 10 breaths of time. If you don't find a way to make Yang Yi show himself in 10 breaths of time, then you and those disciples of that sect of yours will die." Zhu Yuan gazed at the man and spoke in a low voice. "Aren't you thinking a little too highly of yourself?" The man spoke calmly. "You can give it a try. Roar." Suddenly, the black dragon roared furiously, and its dragon pressure swept out in waves that caused even space to ripple. Meanwhile, the dragon opened its mouth and spoke. "Young master, why waste your breath on these ants? Let me crush these ants. That fellow Yang Yi will definitely show himself then, right?" Zhu Yuan's expression changed slightly when he heard the dragon. He gazed at the dragon for a short while, and then his pupils suddenly constricted slightly as he seemed to have thought of something. You're from the Central Divine Prefecture. Foolish human. Where else do you think we are from? The black dragon looked down at Zhu Yuan from above. The expressions of every human and demon beast here changed drastically when they heard the black dragon admit it, and this included Welkin Wolf Demon King. Even though he'd guessed it earlier, he didn't dare say for sure. because very few from the Central Divine Prefecture would come to Pine Prefecture. Moreover, he hadn't imagined that someone from the Central Divine Prefecture would come here looking for Yang Yi. Could Yang Yi be from the Central Divine Prefecture as well? Welkin Wolf Demon King thought in his heart. At this moment, Zhu Yuan had quite the unsightly expression on his face, because he hadn't expected the man and dragon to be from the Central Divine Prefecture. Actually, he should have realized a long time ago, because while there were dragons within Pine Prefecture in the past, there had never been any Saint Realm dragons in anywhere but the Central Divine Prefecture. The Central Divine Prefecture. Zhu Yuan took a deep breath and looked at the man in embroidered clothes, and there was fear and seriousness in his eyes. No matter what rank the power which the man belonged to was, Zhu Yuan had no doubt that the Tao Order couldn't afford to offend it. It wasn't that the Tao Order feared the power which the man belonged to. It was just not worth it. There was no enmity between the Tao Order and the power which the man represented. Their target was Yang Yi. So the Tao Order had absolutely no reason to go against the man. When he thought up to this point, there was no hesitance left in Zhu Yuan's eyes. There is a way to force Yang Yi to show himself. He's a very loyal person. If you capture someone he cares about and spread news about it, then he'll definitely rush back here no matter where he is. Fu Jingxian sighed softly when she heard him. She knew that the Tao Order was enemies with Yang Yi once again. On the other hand, Yu Wushuang and Lu Wanner's expressions changed slightly. They had no doubt that Zhu Yuan was speaking about them. The man frowned slightly. People he cares about? Meanwhile, Welkin Wolf Demon King pointed at Lu Wanner and Yu Wushuang. Those two women. The man looked along the direction Welkin Wolf Demon King was pointing towards, and he immediately noticed Yu Wushuang and Lu Wanner. However, it didn't take long for his gaze to descend onto Oblivion Maiden, who stood by Yu Wushuang's side. His relaxed brows were pressed together again when he saw her, and a long time passed before he said, "You feel familiar to me." The gazes of everyone here descended onto Oblivion Maiden when they heard him, and then they watched as Oblivion Maiden glanced at him before lowering her head to look at the fox in her arms. She'd completely disregarded him. Everyone almost felt their jaws hit the ground when they witnessed this scene. They had never imagined that a seemingly weak and fragile woman would actually dare to disregard the man in embroidered clothes who was from the Central Divine Prefecture. My God! He's standing on a Saint Realm dragon. Unexpectedly, the man didn't flare up. Conversely, he had a trace of seriousness and bewilderment on his face. The man took a deep and long glance at Oblivion Maiden, and then he looked at Zhu Yuan. I disdain to act against women, so you do it. You can leave once Yang Yi arrives. Understand? Zhu Yuan's face was quite unsightly. After all, when had he even been threatened like this? However, he didn't dare to resist, because it wasn't just the disciples of the Tao Order who would die before the joint forces of the Black Dragon and Welkin Wolf Demon King. Even he would perish here. Zhu Yuan pondered deeply for a moment and spoke solemnly. Dao Fu, capture them. It was naturally not good for a saint like him to act against two weak women. Meanwhile, Qing Daofu hesitated for a moment before his figure shot towards Yu Wushuang and Lu Wanner. Even though he didn't want to do this, he knew that the disciples of the Tao Order would die if they refused. Suddenly, something unexpected occurred. A ray of light shot down from the sky and arrived in an instant. After the light dispersed, everyone here was slightly stunned. Suddenly, Welkin Wolf Demon King, the man, the Black Dragon, and Zhu Yuan seemed to have noticed something, and then swiftly looked down to the ground. At this moment, Qing Daofu had stopped on the spot, and a man was standing in front of him. The man held a sword in his grasp, and that sword was placed against Qing Daofu's neck while threads of blood were slowly seeping out from Qing Daofu's neck. Yang Yi. As soon as they recovered from their shock, the cultivators on Ocean of Clouds Academy's side felt overjoyed. Yu Wushuang and Lu Wanner heaved sighs of relief as well, but there was a complicated expression in their eyes, because they didn't want Yang Yi to come back. Yet now he'd come back alone. So, they felt that he'd just come back to give his life away. Meanwhile, Oblivion Maiden's gaze descended onto Yang Yi. She sized him up before lowering her head and patting the fox which was sound asleep in her arms. She spoke softly, "Ali, we'll be able to go home soon. Yang Yi, don't be rash." Zhu Yuan was shocked when he saw Yang Ye's sword against Qing Daofu's throat, and he hurriedly said, "We can talk about this. Qing Daofu is a genius of my Dao order, and he's the future hope." Hiss! Suddenly, a ray of cold light flashed, and then Qing Daofu's head flew into the air. Yang Yi withdrew his sword and gazed at Zhu Yuan, who was burning with rage. Why would I care about that? He'd killed Qing Daofu with a single swing of his sword. When did Yang Yi become that strong? Qing Daofu is one of the 5 top geniuses of our prefecture. He's a supreme expert of the younger generation who's only inferior to saints. However, it was exactly such a supreme expert who had been killed in an instant. Is Yang Yi a saint? Everyone here was beyond shocked. At this moment, Welkin Wolf Demon King had an extremely solemn expression on his face. Qing Daofu was weaker than Yang Yi, and that was definite. But it was absolutely not weaker to the point that he couldn't fight back when facing Yang Yi. But it didn't take long for him to come to an understanding once his gaze descended upon the yellow sword in Yang Ye's grasp and the black cape Yang Yi wore. The sword was at the divine rank, and so was the cape. He's relying on treasures. Welkin Wolf Demon King's heart eased up slightly when he realized this. He would truly be afraid if Yang Yi had attained the Saint Realm. After all, once a genius like Yang Yi attained the Saint Realm, then his strength would be absolutely terrifying. Fortunately, Yang Yi wasn't a saint yet, and he was only relying on equipment to improve his strength. Welkin Wolf Demon King didn't do anything. He just gazed at Yang Yi with a mocking expression on his face. The man from the Central Divine Prefecture was looking for Yang Yi, and it was obvious that the man had come here with ill intent. Besides that, conflict had arisen between Yang Yi and the Dao Order. So, Yang Yi could be said to have offended 2 saints. If he was included, then it would be 3. Thus, he wanted to see who could save Yang Yi now. Yang Yi! Zhu Yuan pointed a finger at Yang Yi and roared furiously. "Do you think I wouldn't dare to kill you?" Yang Yi laughed coldly. "You can try, you old bastard. Then I will." Zhu Yuan roared furiously and was about to attack. But Yang Yi waved his right hand, and a black-robed man appeared by Yang Ye's side. Zhu Yuan's pupils constricted slightly when he saw the black-robed man. Welkin Wolf Demon King's face changed as well. Because the man was a saint. Because Yang Yi had utilized his sword domain to conceal the death energy within Li Yun's body. So they weren't able to discern that Li Yun was a puppet, and he was even a puppet made from an inferior saint. Yang Yi glanced at Welkin Wolf Demon King and Zhu Yuan. "Did you really think I would be foolish enough to come back here on my own? Allow me to tell you that the Bear King has agreed to lend us a hand, and the army of the Bear Clan will be here soon." "What nonsense!" Welkin Wolf Demon King roared with fury. "I've received news that the Bear Clan will absolutely not interfere in the matters here. That saint by your side is definitely not from the Bear Clan." Meanwhile, the man in embroidered clothes spoke abruptly. "That's a puppet!" Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly when he heard this, and then he gazed at the man in embroidered clothes. He hadn't expected the man would have actually seen through his sword servant. But it didn't take long for Yang Ye's gaze to descend onto the black dragon. A dragon? Yang Ye's eyes drooped. He had the blood of the dragon ancestor, and it could counter and suppress all dragons that were weaker than the dragon ancestor. However, he wondered if he could do the same to the black dragon when it was at the Saint Realm. A puppet! Welkin Wolf Demon King and Zhu Yuan were shocked when they heard the man. They naturally knew about puppets, but they'd never heard of anyone in this world who was capable of refining saints into puppets. Both of them didn't quite believe it, but they dared no refute the man. After all, they didn't want to offend him. "Yes, it is a puppet," Yang Yi suddenly said. "It's a Saint Realm puppet that I obtained." Zhu Yuan, Welkin Wolf Demon King, "Didn't the 2 of you want to kill me? Feel free to try. Allow me to warn you that I'll make this Saint Realm puppet disregard its safety and fight the person who launches the first attack. If it can't defeat you, I'll make it detonate itself and take you down with it." Yang Yi. Do you think that we would allow ourselves to be threatened by that? Zhu Yuan spoke fiercely. Let me tell you something. My Dao order will never rest until it destroys you and the ancient sword school to avenge Qing Daofu. Everyone from the Dao order heed my command. Attack and kill the disciples of the ancient sword school with all your strength. Don't you dare move a muscle. Yang Yi suddenly roared as he gazed at the members of the Dao order and spoke fiercely. Disciples of the Dao order, I, Yang Yi, am not an ungrateful person. I owe your founding ancestor, and I don't want to repay his kindness with enmity. I killed Qing Daofu because he acted against me. I'm not an ungrateful person, but I'm not one to stubbornly try to avoid repaying kindness with enmity. If you dare to attack, then none of you can hope of leaving the city with your lives. The disciples of the Dao order revealed grim expressions when they heard him, and they looked at him with fearful phases. They'd witnessed Yang Ye's ruthless character a long time ago, and they were sure that he would definitely do as he said if they dared to attack first. Welkin Wolf King, what do you think about joining forces to kill that kid? Suddenly, Zhu Yuan gazed at Welkin Wolf Demon King. Yang Yi had killed Qing Daofu, and it was something that the Dao order absolutely couldn't tolerate, so it had to take revenge no matter the cost. Welkin Wolf Demon King glanced at the man in embroidered clothes, and once he determined that the man wasn't against it, he hesitated for a moment before he nodded. All right, 2 against 1? Yang Yi laughed coldly, and then he shouted, Qing! As soon as he spoke, an explosion resounded from a mountain in the distance, and then a ray of green light shot over in his direction. It arrived by Yang Ye's side in the blink of an eye. The light dispersed, and a woman in a green dress appeared before everyone. Another saint. Welkin Wolf Demon King and Zhu Yuan's faces changed. They hadn't expected that another saint would appear here. Where did that fellow find 2 saints? It was naturally Qing. Yang Yi had started trying to contact her once he started rushing back to the city, and he was pleasantly surprised to find out that Qing had attained the saint realm. That made him even more confident in his chances at victory. Meanwhile, Yang Yi glanced at Zhu Yuan and Welkin Wolf Demon King. Come. Either both of you or I will die today. That's enough. Suddenly, the man in embroidered clothes spoke. The patriarch asked me to be absolutely careful before I came here, and he said that I should absolutely not underestimate you. I thought that you, Yang Yi, would be a proud genius. But now that I've met you, I'm disappointed. You, Yang Yi, are just a clown who relies on divine rank treasures and others. Yang Yi gazed at the man. Who are you? You don't have the right to know. The man continued, I don't want to continue wasting time. Will you come with me on your own accord? Or should I break your limbs and take you by force? Yang Ye's figure rose up slowly into the air, and he arrived before the man and the dragon. He glanced at the dragon and then he gazed at the man. If your confidence comes from that dragon below you, then I can only say that you might be disappointed. The man gazed at Yang Yi for a short while, and then he tapped his right leg lightly against the dragon. Don't go too hard on him. Keep him alive. Roar. The dragon raised its head and roared with fury, and then it blasted a wave of dragon pressure at Yang Yi. The powerful dragon pressure was comparable to the might of the heavens and the earth, and it caused countless demon beasts in the surroundings to lay flat on the ground and shiver. Besides that, some humans were even unable to endure such pressure, and they laid flat on the ground and shivered just like the demon beasts did. Yang Yi didn't try to resist it and just allowed it to arrive before it, and then everyone watched with astonishment as he remained completely unharmed after it slammed against him. Zhu Yuan and Welkin Wolf Demon King's pupils constricted slightly upon witnessing this scene. They hadn't expected that Yang Yi could actually disregard such dragon pressure. After all, even they couldn't do that. Suddenly, Zhu Yuan's expression changed as he recalled something. Yang Yi had said that he was the scion of the dragons when he went to the Dao order that time. At that time, Zhu Yuan was certain that Yang Yi was talking nonsense. But when he saw that Yang Yi was actually immune to the dragon pressure of a Saint Realm dragon, he had no choice but to believe it. At this moment, the dragon and the man's eyes carried bewilderment as well. It was especially so for the dragon. Its dragon pressure was something that even saints dare not disregard. But Yang Yi hadn't just disregarded it, he was completely unaffected. The black dragon spoke in a deep voice. "Human, how did you do that?" Yang Yi took a deep breath while a mysterious smile curled up on the corners of his mouth. He'd thought that the dragon ancestor's blood would lose its efficacy before Saint Realm dragons. But he hadn't imagined that it would still be effective. In other words, the strength and bloodline of the dragon ancestor on profound continents surpassed this black dragon. Yang Yi didn't speak. He just transformed into a ray of light which vanished on the spot. At the same time, the expression of the man who stood on the dragon changed. He waved his right hand forward, and a ray of black light swept out. Bang! An explosion resounded, and a figure was blasted flying. A wisp of disdain curled up on the corners of the man's mouth as he said, "So, you're so weak. You!" When he spoke up to this point, his eyes suddenly opened wide, and there was horror within them. He was just about to flee from where he stood. But it was too late. A dagger had been stabbed against his nape, but it didn't go deep and only entered a few centimeters into his neck. Even then, the man didn't dare move at all. "So, you're so weak." Yang Ye's voice resounded in the man's ears. The man gazed at the figure he'd blasted into the distance, and he instantly came to an understanding, because that wasn't Yang Yi at all. He'd been tricked. Welkin Wolf Demon King and Zhu Yuan revealed solemn expressions because Yang Ye's attack was truly too swift and mysterious. Even they had only been barely able to capture Yang Ye's movements just now. It could be said that Yang Ye's speed had surpassed many saints. "Human, you'll definitely die a graveless death if you dare to harm the young master." The dragon roared furiously, but he didn't dare act rashly because Yang Yi had the man's fate in his hands. Yang Yi paid no attention to the dragon. He just exerted a little force and stabbed the dagger a little deeper into the man's nape. And then he said, "Now, do I have the right to know who you are?" The man's face turned livid. He was just about to speak when Yang Yi suddenly shook his head. "Forget it. I'm not interested in that anymore." Hiss! Yang Yi suddenly flicked the dagger upwards, and the man's head was instantly sliced into two. Was the man in embroidered clothes strong? In Yang Ye's opinion, the man was very strong, extremely strong. He was much stronger than Qing Daofu. If it was at any other time before this, even if he could defeat the man, it would be absolutely impossible for Yang Yi to kill the man with such ease. Yet now, Yang Yi possessed numerous equipment at the divine rank, and he even utilized a divine rank technique and void rank sword intent. Under such circumstances, his strength had risen significantly. So, not to mention that the man was only a high-rank half-saint, Yang Yi was confident in his ability to go face the man directly in combat even if the man was a saint. The reason that the man in embroidered clothes had been killed in an instant without any ability to resist was because the man had been careless. From the beginning until the end, the man in embroidered clothes had looked down upon Yang Yi with a sense of superiority. If it wasn't for that, it would be absolutely impossible for him to have been killed in an instant with such ease when he had the Black Dragon's assistance. Of course, Yang Yi was confident in his ability to kill him even if the man in embroidered clothes hadn't underestimated him. "Human, you're courting death." The Black Dragon roared with fury when he saw Yang Yi kill the man in embroidered clothes, and he swung his enormous figure in Yang Ye's direction. The terrifying force and dragon pressure, which came from the Black Dragon's enormous body, caused numerous mountains behind Yang Yi to be blasted into powder. However, Yang Yi remained motionless on the spot. Yang Yi suddenly roared, "Fuck off!" As soon as he spoke, Yang Yi activated the bloodline he inherited from the dragon ancestor, and an invisible wave of pressure swept forward towards the huge Black Dragon. Everyone here watched with astonishment as the might of the Saint-rank dragon actually weakened more than 10 times in an instant upon being enveloped by the invisible pressure which Yang Yi emanated. At the same time, the Black Dragon started to slow down, and it didn't take long for the Black Dragon to be forced to a stop in midair. The spectators were astounded by the sight of this. Even Zhu Yuan and Welkin Wolf Demon King's eyes were opened wide at this moment, and they seemed like they'd seen a ghost. Meanwhile, Oblivion Maiden's jet-black brows were knit together as well, and there was a trace of bewilderment in her eyes. At this moment, The black dragon's eyes were filled with shock and bewilderment as well. Besides that, there was a trace of fear within them as well. Because he sensed a strand of pressure just now, it was a strand bloodline pressure. Bloodline pressure. He was at the Saint Realm, so his bloodline had been improved and transformed. Besides an ancestral dragon, there was no other dragon that could cause him to suffer suppression from bloodline pressure. However, he'd actually been suppressed by bloodline pressure, and it was even from a human. Human? Why do you have the bloodline of my dragon clan? The black dragon gazed at Xianxia with vigilance and fear. A glow of excitement flickered in Xianxia's eyes when he noticed that the dragon ancestor's blood was actually effective against the black dragon. Because it meant that most dragons would be suppressed by his bloodline, and it meant that this huge fellow in front of him wasn't that troublesome to deal with anymore. Xianxia suddenly stretched out a finger and pointed it at the huge black dragon, and he roared with fury, "Do you know who I am?" His voice was like a thunderclap that terrified countless cultivators and demon beasts. The black dragon's eyelids twitched, and then he spoke fiercely, "Human, I admit that your bloodline can affect me, but if you think that you can rely on that bloodline to defeat me, then I have to say that you're dreaming." "How presumptuous!" Xianxia roared. "I'm the scion of the dragons who the patriarch personally appointed, and my status is equivalent to the patriarch. You actually dare to speak to me like that? Are you trying to get skinned alive and suffer having your tendons pulled out? The scion of the dragons?" A wisp of bewilderment flashed through the black dragon's eyes. A long time passed before he spoke in a deep voice. "Human, stop talking nonsense. When did my dragon clan ever have a scion?" When he spoke up to this point, the black dragon's voice became cold. "Do you know what consequences await you for misusing the name of my dragon clan?" Xianxia asked. "Then tell me why I have the bloodline of the dragon clan." The black dragon spoke in a low voice. "Maybe you forcefully extracted it from a member of my dragon clan and fused it with your own bloodline. How stupid are you?" Xianxia ridiculed. "Just think about it. Whose bloodline would I have to extract in order to affect you with my bloodline? The patriarch at least." The black dragon's pupils constricted when he spoke up to this point, because he noticed that it was impossible. Extract the bloodline of the dragon clan's patriarch? Not to mention Pine Prefecture, there wasn't anyone in the Central Divine Prefecture who had the ability to do that. In other words, Xianxia knew that it was working when he noticed the change in the black dragon's expression, and he hurriedly said, "If the patriarch hadn't willingly given me his bloodline, could anyone have been able to extract his blood?" The black dragon was still quite doubtful. "Then why have I never heard about this scion of the dragons?" "That's because it's a classified secret of our dragon clan." Xianxia continued, "The patriarch gave me a secret mission to complete. Anyway, it isn't something you need to know. Understand? Right? The patriarch said that if I am to encounter trouble, then all dragons of our clan must help me unconditionally." When he spoke up to this point, Xianxia pointed at Welkin Wolf Demon King. "Now, help me kill him." Welkin Wolf Demon King's eyelids twitched when he heard this, and he hurriedly looked at the black dragon. He was horrified when he noticed that the black dragon seemed to be hesitating, and he quickly said, "You absolutely can't believe him so easily. If he really is that so-called scion of the dragons, then based on your strength and status in your clan, how could your patriarch have not told you about him? Moreover, even if the patriarch of the dragon clan appointed someone as a scion of your clan, how could it possibly be such a weak person?" The black dragon fell silent for a long time. In the end, he gazed at Xianxia and said, "Human, I still refuse to believe that you're that scion which you say you are." Xianxia asked, "Why?" "Intuition." The black dragon looked Xianxia in the eyes and said, "I have no reason to refute anything you've said. However, my intuition tells me that you aren't who you say you are." His intuition? The corners of Xianxia's mouth twitched, and then he said, "So." The black dragon pondered deeply for a while, and then he said, "You've killed the young master of the Lu clan's branch family. So, you have to come with me. Don't worry, you'll just be making a trip with me. Once we return to the Central Divine Prefecture, it'll become clear whether you really are a scion of my dragon clan. If it's true, then not to mention a branch family of the Lu clan, even the entire Lu clan would dare not harm you. Yang Ye's face fell, and he said, "Do you realize that doing that would spoil the patriarch's plans?" He wanted to just kill the black dragon and refine him into a sword servant. After all, he was 50% confident in his ability to kill the black dragon with the help of the bloodline pressure he possessed. However, he didn't dare to act on such a thought, because if he were to fight the black dragon right now, then Zhu Yuan and Welkin Wolf Demon King would definitely attack as well. Moreover, while the huge black dragon wasn't a big threat to him, the black dragon was a huge threat to everyone else in Ocean of Cloud City. So long as the black dragon disregarded everything and slammed his body against the city, then at least half the residents of the city would perish. Thus, Yang Yi had no choice but to use his brains to turn the situation around. The black dragon replied, "Then produce something that proves you're the scion of my dragon clan. So long as you can produce proof which convinces me, then I'll help you unconditionally. Otherwise, you have to come back to the central divine prefecture with me." It was naturally impossible for the black dragon to help Yang Yi fight Welkin Wolf Demon King just because of something Yang Yi had said. Proof? Welkin Wolf Demon King laughed coldly. If he did have proof, he would have produced it a long time ago, and he wouldn't have been wasting his breath until now. In my opinion, he definitely obtained that bloodline through forbidden methods. The black dragon's gaze towards Yang Yi turned slightly hostile when he heard Welkin Wolf Demon King. Suddenly, Yang Yi started laughing. "I didn't want to reveal it, but I have no other choice. Black Dragon, if the Patriarch's plans are spoiled because I'm exposed, then you'll be an eternal traitor of my dragon clan, and even the death of all your relatives wouldn't be sufficient to atone for it." As soon as he finished speaking, numerous golden scales suddenly surged out from within Yang Yi, and it didn't take long for them to cover Yang Ye's entire body. Moreover, 2 golden dragon horns grew out from his head. Draconification. It was an ability he obtained when he gained the inheritance of the dragon ancestor all those years ago. It was a huge help to him in battle in the beginning, but as his strength and physical body was improved incessantly, the amount of help it provided him had become practically insignificant. So, he practically didn't utilize it anymore. Now, he had no choice but to try and use it to trick the black dragon. Everyone here was stunned when they saw Yang Yi transform like that, and it included Welkin Wolf Demon King. He hadn't expected that Yang Yi could actually transform like that. At this moment, Yang Yi simply seemed like a being that was half man and half dragon. An inheritance of my dragon clan. The black dragon's eyes were filled with shock. "Human! You actually obtained an inheritance of my dragon clan. You... The inheritance of the dragon clan was usually given to dragons alone. But he hadn't imagined that this human would have actually obtained an inheritance of the dragon clan, and he felt quite a bit of disbelief. Yang Yi said, "Black dragon, do you need further proof?" The black dragon gazed at Yang Yi, while a wisp of complicated emotions flashed through his eyes. In the end, he shook his head slightly and said, "Even if you aren't that scion which you say that you are, there's definitely a deep relationship between you and my dragon clan. So, I'll help you today." As soon as he finished speaking, the black dragon turned his head and roared at Welkin Wolf Demon King, and then he charged in Welkin Wolf Demon King's direction. A wisp of ferocity flashed through Welkin Wolf Demon King's eyes, and then he immediately returned to his original form. He transformed into a huge black wolf that wasn't any smaller than the black dragon. The dragon and wolf didn't fight in the sky. They entered a pocket of space instead. Because regardless of whether it was the black dragon or Welkin Wolf Demon King, both of them didn't dare to offend the Heaven Tao at a time like this. Yang Yi heaved a sigh of relief in his heart when the black dragon and Welkin Wolf Demon King entered into a pocket of space. He withdrew his gaze and looked at Zhu Yuan instead. The corners of Zhu Yuan's eyes twitched, and then he glanced at Qing and Li Yun, who was a sword servant now. Zhu Yuan pondered deeply for a moment before he said, "Yang Yi, my Tao order will get even with you in the future. I'll give face to the Ancient Sword School and Ocean of Clouds Academy today, and I won't make a fuss about it with you for now. Disciples of my Tao order, come with me." As he spoke, He was about to tear space open and leave with the disciples of the Tao order. "Did I say that you could go?" Suddenly, Yang Ye's voice resounded in the air above the city.